With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
October is Italian-American Heritage Month in the United States, so what could be more fitting than traveling to both Italy and America in the Monday Night Prototype Series in the Precision Racing League? It's like it was intentional. It's like they made for this to happen. Benvenuto to Round 5 of 2023 Season 4 for the Monday Night Prototype Series in the PRL, as the LMP3-GT4 Challenge, and later the GTP-LMP2 Series take on the virtual Imola and the virtual Watkins Glen. Hi everybody, Joey Tebben here in the booth alongside Reese Gardner for the second week in a row, and our producer, as always, Dustin Ollis behind the scenes. Reese, thankfully, we finally left Road Atlanta after about 1,000 laps and dozens of hours over the past couple of weeks and days, and now it's time to start things off by getting a little bit more twisty, a little bit more curvaceous. It's Imola time.
Absolutely it is. Been looking forward to this round for some time. This is a very good track here, the Autodromo Enzo Edino Ferrari. Plenty of heavy braking zones, chicanes to negotiate, and I mean, yeah, Road Atlanta, it was important to nail the curbs. It's just as important here. There's some very heavy curbs there, but what a schedule we have. We're going to Kota next week, Fuji, Donington, Zandvoort, and Interlagos. Beautiful schedule to round out this 2023 S4 season.
Craziest round there, round 8 at Donington. That is the national circuit. That's going to be a sub 1 minute lap time. It's going to be a road course bull ring. That is going to be incredible in round 8, but it's going to be incredible for the rest of the season. And critically here in round 5, after this, when we reach the halfway point of the season, drop points will come into effect. So you'll start to see the championship standings get shaken up a little bit. Sean Campbell, I don't think he's going to get shaken up a little bit at all. He's at the lead of the championship because he's won all 4 of the opening races so far. Adam Brockway and Alec Bergstrom, both of them won races last season. They're still looking for their first win and maybe being the first drivers to take down Sean Campbell. Their third teammate, Wayne Castile, last season's champion, he's not even in the top 10. We hope to see him back this week and maybe start fighting for those wins once more. Griffith and Precker round out the top 5, and then Klist, Kulaga, Peterson, Mulholland, and Drescher have all been assorted amounts of consistent. Drescher's been on the podium. They're all looking to get their season on track in the second half of the season. But Reese, there's a split in LMP3 as the Moradnes M squad, they've finally been split up because YS Motorsports, they've got the drivers to have the consistency. They've been scoring points while the second Moradnes M squad, they've fallen back just a little bit due to inconsistency.
Yeah, and consistency is the name of the game, isn't it? In a 10-race season, you want to be able to get the most consistent results possible, and YS Motorsports doing well to keep that going here in the early stages of the season. Still pretty close between Throttle Thursday and Marshmallow Racing as well, only 20 points separating them, and Vulture Motorsports not that far behind either. Team AKR and Olympus Esports also really close at the bottom of the top 10 as well. Should be interesting to see how these standings are jostled around coming out of this round, depending on how things go.
There's not just one class in this series, there's GT4 as well. Alexis Moisan returned to victory lane last week, won his second race of the season, but he's looked human this season, he's looked beatable. We don't know if that's going to be the case for the rest of the season, though. Graham Wildman is certainly hoping he can get some more wins on the board. He won his first race at Phillip Island. just 2 weeks ago, and they've kind of been the big two all season long. Nathan Jennings and Andrew Rasmussen, and Joshua Reed for that matter, due to consistency, they're all fighting for third. Augustine Guarnieri, he's been very fast. Michael Pabiano's been on the podium. Gerard Farewell, he won the opening round of the season. All of them have had some inconsistency. They've had some bad results. They're going to be looking forward to that drop round coming into effect after this week, and that may bring their championship hopes back on track. Will Jennings and Thomas Dunn, they may be looking for some of that stuff as well. The team standings at GT4, they're far more competitive because Alexis Moisan isn't actually racing for a team this season. He's a solo driver, so the likes of Scuderia Burb, who have now twinned up with Twin Turn Racing, Soy Boys Racing, that's Graham Wildman in the gang, Big Fast Racing is Nathan Jennings in the gang, and even Blue Chip Racing, they're all very close, separated by less than 100 points, and that's going to be a very interesting team battle to watch over the course of the next 6 weeks. Qualifying is currently underway at Imola for LMP3 and GT4, but before we can get you into that, we've got to thank all the people who make all this possible in the PRL real quick. Starting firstly with Advanced Sim Racing. Owned and operated by passionate sim racers, Advanced Sim Racing designs and builds the sturdiest and most durable aluminum profile racing simulation cockpits available in the market today. All PRL members also get a 5% discount on ASR products using the Precision5 coupon code. This coverage is also brought to you by Racebox Sim Racing. Racebox offers mid and high-end button boxes for sim racing enthusiasts, from the casual gamer up to the most meticulous sim racing driver. Competitively priced and carefully handcrafted, their button boxes are an enjoyable addition to any sim racing setup. Visit raceboxsimracing.com and also get a 5% discount, also using the Precision5 coupon code. The Butt Kicker. Butt Kicker products provide incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat with the Butt Kicker. Mechasim Hardware is a small company from the Czech Republic, and their goal is to produce high-quality sim racing hardware. If you're looking for a high-end pedal set, handbrake, or sequential shifter, visit Mechasim Hardware's eShop right now to get you up to speed and check them out. Moradness is a performance lifestyle brand motivated by motorsport and founded by professional race car driver Daniel Morad. For more information, visit moradness.com. And last but not least, Mr. Hedge iRacing Photography. Capture your finest, proudest, or simply worst moments from your hobby in up to 8K resolution. A great addition to any sim room. Now, at long last, it's time for a great addition to qualifying because we are underway. We've got our first couple of laps on the board, only about 2.5 minutes to go. It shouldn't be a real surprise, Reese, that Sean Campbell, he's back up on pole for the moment.
Yeah, exactly. Campbell been the quickest driver overall in the LMP3 class and leads by 2/10 over Adam Brockway at the moment. We're looking at the YS Motorsports car of Corey Precker at the moment, who's currently in 6th in the standings, just negotiating the Aqua Minerale section, which I think, Joey, is going to be one of the key points to watch during the racing tonight. You're braking and turning at the same time into that corner, and it's very easy to catch the grass and spin. Could be some difficulties making your way past the GT4 traffic if you're an LMP3 driver.
Watching Corey Precker on one of his final laps, getting a little bit of a rest of the hands as he crests over the hill through the final sector, and I think that was actually him realizing that he's probably not actually going to improve on this lap, so he's taking a little ride back to the pits. That'll be P6 for Corey Precker. But Sean Campbell, he's looked beatable this season in qualifying. He has been beaten to poles by Adam Brockway, but once the race comes around, as we see a spin from one of the Blue Chip Racing Porsches, Sean Campbell, his fuel saving has been unbeaten this season. His race pace has been unbeaten. Brockway's within 80 thousandths of a second of him in qualifying, but can he actually stick with him in the race this time?
Yeah, that is the question. I think what he's going to be hoping for is that, oh dear, Andrew Sharp making a little mistake there at the Variante Alta chicane. He's going to want to focus on the slipstream, isn't he? Because the front stretch here at Imola, there are a few kinks in it, but it is a flat-out run to the first chicane at Tamburello. So what he needs to do is make sure he gets good exits from the Rivazza corners at the end of the lap and try and stick within a few car lengths of him just to keep himself in touch. But you know, race pace, as you said, seems to be Sean Campbell's strength, so it's going to be a difficult one. Matthew Cherwick, meanwhile, in the Cayman, making his way down to those very same corners I was talking about. Got to nail the exit, but be careful not to go too far onto the dark AstroTurf. What I've noticed about this track, Joey, is if the green runoff is light green, you can use it. If it's dark green, probably best to stay away from it.
That's always very helpful. When they can give you the colors like that, it's easy to differentiate. It makes your life a lot easier. There was no improvement there for Matthew Zerwick, unfortunately. It was good to see him on camera for the first time, though. There was a late jump up to P6, I think, for Nicholas Karangis right as the checkered flag flew. So that was perfectly timed for Nicholas Karangis, but it was even more perfectly timed for Mr. Sean Campbell, who yet again, for the third time this season, if I have my numbers correct, he is on pole. Adam Brockway, though, he's kept him company on the outside. 80 thousandths off in qualifying. Can he stick with him in the race and finally end the Sean Campbell reign of terror? We'll have to wait and see. Alec Bergstrom starts behind Sean on row number 2, alongside a guy who's had a podium this season, Jason Drescher. Last season's GT3 fixed champion, Aero Urexoy, did not have a great day at Road Atlanta last week. He's looking to improve, alongside Nicholas Karangis on row number 3. Down in P7, Ian Starker, he's been improving with every race. He starts alongside our VR buddy, Corey Precker. Then Wesley Griffith and Joey Morissette round out the top 10. Baron Glover, he's back in the field in P11, starting alongside Throttle Thursday's Greg Doucette. That makes the top dozen. Unlucky 13th went to Michael Kulaga. He's going to be looking forward once the green flag flies. He starts alongside Sean Mulholland, Ryan Luna, Russell Peterson, all ours on row number 8. Paul Joseph Clist and Andrew Kissinger round out the top 18. But there is one little treat. How about this? Ryan Kings starting 19th. Didn't get a qualifying lap in, but hopefully we'll see him on the grid, and hopefully we'll see him moving his way forward. We know that's a very fast driver. Alexis Moisan, speaking of very fast drivers, 8.5 tenths of a second over the rest of the field in GT4. It is Alexis Moisan's day, but the likes of Graham Wildman and everybody behind are going to be hoping that there's the same bad luck that has fought Alexis Moisan at points this season. Augustine Guarnieri and his teammate Joaquin Mello start on row number 2, both of them making up for some bad luck earlier this season. Michael Papiano starts alongside series organizer Andrew Sharp on row number 3. Jared Farrell won the opening round of the season. He starts alongside Max Stevenson. And then Scott Lefever and Nicholas Larson round out the top 10. Nathan Jennings starts alongside our own Texan, Kalen Tobin, not to be confused with Joey Tebben. Thomas Dunn, 13th, starts alongside Jean-Sebastien Bédard. Then Alaka, Pruitt, Zerwick, and Jerry Turner round out the top 18. But the hits keep on coming because it's a big old GT4 field. That is not Max Stevenson in 19th. That's actually Joshua Reed. We don't know why that happens, but that is Joshua Reed. He starts alongside Dan Gorman. Then Will Jennings, Andrew Rasmussen, and Edward Peltz, not Andrew Peltz. None of them got qualifying laps in. They're all going to be looking forward from the back of the grid in GT4. But that is a big grid, 42 total cars between LMP3 and GT4, Reese. It's Imola. There's not a lot of room, but we are ready to go green here after a short pace lap. You better get ready. You better be ready. And Sean Campbell is at the head of the field. He prepares to start for the third time this season from pole, and we're racing at Imola. It's a very packed up start. Everybody arguing 3 wide a little bit further back, but Campbell's in control. He's trying to bring everybody into turn 1. Jason Drescher following Alec Bergstrom into third around the outside. Drescher's up onto the podium, but into the first chicanes on lap 1. These are always critical moments. These are always careful moments as you hope those curbs don't bite early.
Absolutely, and the GT4 field did not leave as much of a gap to the LMP3s. It looks like, someone's off there in the background there. That's Andrew Sharp in the GT4 category, and crucially, Alexis Moisan not leading that class. It looks like Augustin Guarnieri has taken the lead there, but Moisan fighting back on him. Nicholas Karangis, the LMP3, recovering there, coming out of the Villeneuve chicane, and actually, oh goodness, Peterson as well off. Looks like a bit of a chaotic start here, Joey.
Yeah, very chaotic start. I don't think anybody was expecting it to be that packed up, or for that matter, to go green that early, but it was a short pace lap. You had to be ready. You had to be on the gases as soon as you came on that front straight, and we've seen it already lead to a little bit of trouble, but there is a new face at the head of the GT4 class. Augustine Guarnieri was able to take advantage of that start. We didn't see how he got the lead, though, as there's a big argument of LMP3s through the chicane. That's going to be Kulaga off the road. He's going to recover but did Augustin Guarnieri take the lead legitimately, or did he potentially jump the start as there's even more LMP3 interaction? That's Greg Doucette trying to come back through.
It's Nicholas Karangis who made contact with Alexis Moisan there and got spun. That has given a big advantage to Augustin Guarnieri in the lead of this class. Looks like Karangis has finally made his way past them all cleanly as there's more trouble in the GT4 class. Michael Papagiano going wide at the Ravazza corners. But hey, looks like Alexis Moisan has got a lot of work to do to try and get the lead back from Guarnieri at this stage.
Graham Wildman, I think he's got to slow down somehow. This is absolute calamity on lap 1. It's absolute carnage. You can't even follow it because everything's been kicking off. Wildman's got to slow down. Moisan's lost the lead. Guarnieri, did he get the lead legitimately? Did he jump the start? We have no idea. We've just got to wait and see, but they're still side by side in GT4. It's a battle for P6 through the first couple of corners. Wildman's trying to recover. He thinks about sending it 3 wide in Kalen Tobin, and they're going to be side by side coming into Villeneuve.
They are indeed, and the Aston Martin is going to fight it versus the McLaren, and Wildman catches the gravel just a little bit. This is looking messy here. Slow down for the Mercedes on the inside of Farewell. Oh, lordy, how did they all get through that cleanly?
4 wide through Tosa. You ask, how did they do that? I don't think we'll ever know the answer to that, Reese. I've never seen that before.
Goodness. Yeah, it's always tight quarters around that section of the track. The Aston of Kalen Tobin has had a lot of adventures here in this initial part of the second lap, and Russell Peterson in the LMP3 is trying to find his way through on all of this as well. I thought we would have to wait a few laps to see this kind of class interaction, but apparently not, as Tobin got bumped wide there at Acqua Minerale and has to get it going again on the straight. Fortunately, Peterson didn't make contact with anyone in that particular section of the track.
Well, it seems like we can breathe for just a moment. There's still some arguments in GT4 a little bit further back. They're side by side out of the chicane. But as we start to get into a rhythm, it looks like most of the LMP3 traffic that spun early on has made their way through. We can start to see sort of the natural order of the race. We can start to see battles in only GT4 again, as it's McLaren versus Porsche a little bit further back, Alaka versus Bédard. But suddenly, Guarnieri actually has to hold off Alexis Moisan up front. And he's only got a 4/10 gap. He may be in the lead. He hasn't had to serve a drive-through, so I don't think he jumped the start, but he's got the guy who was 8.5 tenths faster than him in qualifying right behind him.
Yeah, Moisan made up a lot of time on that lap as Greg Doucette's had a spin in LMP3. That's huge there for Doucette. He was running very well in 9th place in the standings at the start of the lap. Meanwhile, let's see what happened to him. Oh dear, looks like he just got crossed up over the curb and the car snapped on him as he tried to correct it.
It's not been a great day for Throttle Thursday so far. Karangis at the back of the field, Doucette at the back of the field, Matt Dinsmore not even here tonight, so it's only been L's for Throttle Thursday. Here comes Alexis Moisan, though, taking a peek up over the top of the hill. He knows it is very difficult to make a move into Piratello, though. Slots back in line. He is putting the pressure on Guarnieri, though, and I think both of these drivers know this is not the order they should really be in. This is not the order they were in qualifying. It's just a matter of how wide can Augustin Guarnieri make this car and for how long?
Exactly. They've got to think about the pit stop as well. There's always pit stops in the Precision Racing League, so maybe Moisan will look at backing off a bit and maybe make up that time in the pits if he isn't able to get past Guarnieri, but that's a fantastic exit from Variante Alta. It's covered by Guarnieri for the time being, but there still might be an opportunity open here for Moisan to get back past in the lead. They're going to have to deal with Peterson as well in the LMP3 behind, trying for the inside, but it just doesn't work.
Guarnieri turn in, though, on the second half of Ravazza. He does. He is clear. And there is Russell Peterson coming through. Alexis Moisan flashing the lights. He's not happy with Augustin Guarnieri defending for his life, because this has also brought Joaquin Mello into the fight. Both of those SART sim racing cars are now in the battle for the lead. Guarnieri's been going super defensive mode. He's let Mello make up about 3 seconds, and Moisan is desperate to get by. He sends a lunge into turn 1, but he's still not there.
Oh, yeah, he's trying desperately to make his way past Guarnieri here, and now he's truly sandwiched in between the SART teammates. It's difficult for a driver like Moisan to try and negotiate this. He tries again at Villeneuve. This is not usually a passing spot. Is room left around the outside? Only just, and there goes Moisan through to the lead. Beautiful move.
questionable blocking there on the straight, but Moisan's through either way. I think Mello was really hoping that a door would open there, but it didn't. He's got to slot back in third, and now the run of the Moisan begins. You see him in clean air, you see him in the lead. He very rarely gives that up, so we'll see if Moisan can get his third win of the season and truly get that electric Moisan style back on the road. Well, these guys have also their battle. Things are not resolved up in LMP3. Sean Campbell in the lead. That lead has been decimated by Adam Brockway. 2/10 separate the two of them. You could see, though, into turn one, Campbell lifting off very, very early. What shenanigans is Sean Campbell up to in the lead of this race?
Oh, you can see just how much ground Brockway's making up in the braking zones as well. It's clear that Campbell is heavily fuel saving already, but he just can't find a way past, can he? Campbell's focusing on his exits at the moment, and that's what's giving him the advantage. Brockway does seem like the faster driver at this stage, but maybe once the pit stop cycle is over, we'll see the advantage swing back in the way of Sean Campbell.
That is the thing Sean Campbell's been best at. He's been the best at fuel saving. He's been the best at minimizing that pit stop time. It seems like every single time we get to a pit cycle in the LMP3 GT4 challenge, Campbell comes out with about a 3 or 4 second lead. How hard is it for Adam Brockway? How hard is it for Alec Bergstrom to match a guy who's seemingly unbeatable at fuel saving and also have to match him on track sometimes?
Yeah, and this is, oh dear, technical issue for Sean Campbell. He'll want to avoid that in future. The problem also for Brockway is, yeah, he can make his way past Sean Campbell if he manages to dive up the inside in the braking zone, but then Campbell's got the slipstream, and he can save even more fuel besides.
Not ideal. The internet issue's not ideal for Sean Campbell. I feel like we've seen that pop up a few times over the course of the past couple seasons, but it's not been regular for him. He's generally pretty locked into the world, but that is going to worry him a little bit if he sees that latency popping up a little bit. It's going to worry him even more, though, because you look up the road, there's not only this, there was some regular GT4 traffic, and now there's an argument at the back of the field as Jean-Sébastien Bédard's off at Tosa, one of the Scuderia Burb cars in trouble as well. They're having an argument in GT4, and LMP3 is going to catch this before too long.
Yeah, it looks like Bédard was hit off by Matthew Alocco, who tried to go for the dive at the Tosa hairpin. It's a very popular overtaking spot, this, but the McLaren was just a bit too late on the brakes and probably wouldn't have made the apex if there wasn't a Cayman there to bump him.
Just using the old Porsche as a brake maneuver. It's the old classic. Did not work out for either of them, though. Bédard, is there any real damage on that car from that little bonk? Looks like he'll be okay to continue. Side by side a little bit further ahead, though, Andrew Rasmussen and Nathan Jennings. This is actually the battle for third in the championship in GT4 right now. It's the battle for 11th and 12th on track because they've just been picking up points with consistency over the course of the season. Looks like Andrew Rasmussen's going to hang on in that Porsche, but it's Porsche versus Mercedes on this long front straight at Imola. BMW versus McLaren, Mercedes versus Porsche. It's a battle of straight line speed at Imola.
Yeah, and it's beautiful to see that the balance of performance is so good that we have such a variety of cars competing. I did notice that Rasmussen had a little bit of damage on his front bumper as well. That might be affecting his aerodynamic performance slightly, and you see here the move potentially round the outside. Bédard trying to make his way back past Nicholas Larson here after the little misadventure at Tosa. Right back on the recovery. Larson already defensive and very easy to defend into Villeneuve. It's a fast entry into the chicane.
Jean-Sébastien Bédard, if you were curious as to what his life was like before he came into the PRL, retired hockey referee, and he's about to get an argument as Adam Brockway loops it around too hard on the brakes. LMP3 full 360, and from second, inches away from Sean Campbell. He's fallen all the way to the end of the top 5.
Such a shame. First time they've encountered lap traffic here. Our LMP3 leaders, and looks like Brockway actually did go into the back of Campbell there. That hit was enough to unsettle the number 42, and around he went. That's such a shame.
That is a shame, but things are still heating up. Campbell and Bergstrom, they're separated by 1/10 of a second as they navigate through traffic. That is going to be absolute insanity from one more Adness LMP3 to the other. They're just locked together, trying to get through that cloud of GT4 traffic we saw before. This battle's not over.
No, certainly not. Battle for the lead not over. Battle between Corey Precker and Joey Morissette not over either for 6th place. Here's the onboard from Brockway as they try to make their way through on the traffic. He wanted to try and go through, but there was traffic in the way, and I think maybe he just locked the rears in addition to that slight contact on the rear of the leader.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. It's always trouble in prototypes. They like a certain amount of brake pressure, but when you go over that limit, it seems like this and the LMP2 car and some other prototypes, they're just like a pendulum at that point. Speaking of a pendulum, it is swung back in the direction of Alec Bergstrom. Like I said, only 3/10 separate these two leaders now. They've gotten through most of the GT4 traffic, but suddenly Sean Campbell's getting deja vu. He's going to be saying, I thought I got rid of the Moradness car hunting me down. Suddenly I've got another one behind me.
Yeah, they've been cloned, and now the clone is looking to try and keep the Moradness glory alive. Remember, Campbell will still be fuel saving. The other YS Motorsport car there of that's Errol Urexoy, I think, potentially. No, it's Corey Precker. My apologies. Down to 9th place after a misadventure through the Villeneuve chicane. I'm seeing a spun GT4 of Michael Pabiano at the exit of Piratella as well. That could be awkward, but it looks like there was contact that turned Precker around there.
Yeah, contact with Joey Morissette. Little bit of a kiss of the wall for Precker. He's gonna get back going. There is Michael Pabiano, Corey Precker's kind of inter-squad teammate. Him and GT4, Precker and LMP3. Pabiano's desperately trying to turn it around, but there's no room right in front of LMP3 traffic. Does get it turned around, but that was very, very dicey. And all that waiting means Michael Pabiano has fallen from battling for the top 5 in GT4 to now falling all the way to the back. 20th place, 21st place now as Gorman gets by.
Oh, and Gorman almost spinning ahead of him. Meanwhile, further up the circuit, continuing to work their way through the LMP3s, and looks to me like Precker is in the midst of all of this, now down to 9th and trying to pass Wesley Griffith. They made their way past easily in Piratella, and now the slipstream is on for Precker. This will be interesting at the end of the straight. They have cleared the GT4 traffic, so they should be able to race each other properly now.
Precker to the outside, Wesley Griffith into turn 1. It's difficult to make it work around the outside, but you're on the inside for the next corner, you're on the inside for the next one, and that's Corey Precker booked back up into the top 7. He's on a recovery drive now. We know Corey's pretty good at those. When he runs into trouble early on, he's good at driving forward, but that's P8 for him. See what happened to his teammate Michael Pabiano, though. Up over the hill, clips that dark green curb, and clips a light green tire wall, and that's going to be a lot of destruction for Michael Pabiano.
Yeah, and what really hurt for Pabiano is that it was happening as the rest of the field was making their way through. Everyone's recompressed again at that point, and so we had to wait such a long time to find a space to get back going. And it's such a difficult section of the circuit to do that as well. The wall's very close in that section. It's a real shame. But the lead has opened up again in LMP3. It looks like Sean Campbell has managed to catch a bit of extra time over Alec Bergstrom. I think traffic might have had something to do with that. And traffic, I think, is something that Campbell won't be too fussed about, because you need to go slower in order to negotiate traffic. That means less time off throttle, more opportunity to fuel save.
And it's not just the LMP3 leaders that have been separated. They're getting through the GT4 leaders right now, and you can see that gap. Moisan 3.5 seconds over Augustine Guarnieri now. This was an unfortunate incident. That's Michael Kulaga and the LMP3 getting through Joshua Reed, quite literally getting through him and driving through him a little bit coming down the hill.
A little bit more space for Reed to get back up to speed there, fortunately. So didn't lose as much time as he otherwise would, but still, you don't want to be hit off by an LMP3 in any case. Well, the lead has really fallen in favor of Alexis Moisan in GT4. He's got quite a ways back to the SART teammates of Guarnieri and Mello, and yeah, I think at this point, all he needs to do is control the race. He did have that little wobble off the start, lost the lead, but wasted no time getting it back. Now he's in a bit of clear air, and he's been able to avoid contact from the LMP3s. He's just jetting away from them right now.
It's not going to be great for Guarnieri and Mello in the Drivers' Championship because they're not going to get the big win points. But SART, second and third, that's going to be some very big points for the Teams' Championship. Because remember, Moisan, he's a single-car team. He's technically not even associated with a team. SART, though, in that four-way battle for the championship, this is going to be great points for them. And I'm no mathematician. It might even put him in the lead of the championship in Teams.
May very well do that, as there's more passing in between the classes. A very nice place to work ways past. Ian Starker and Corey Precker trying to work their way through here in the battle for 7th. Precker's not wasting any time getting back up to speed, is he? He's managed to gain a few more positions in the midst of all of this dicing in between the classes.
He's a very good recovery driver, and that's not a backhanded compliment. It's just, it seems like sometimes Corey Precker gets into trouble early on. He either gets hit or occasionally he has an issue of his own, but he's a great recovery driver. Always, he never gives up. He's always driving forward, and now as he gets around Graham Wildman, he sees an extra spot right ahead of him. That's Ian Starker. That's not a teammate, I should say. Even though those two cars look nearly identical, Corey Precker's in an actual YS Motorsports livery. Ian Starker is just in a ridiculously similar car, I believe. I don't believe he's actually a teammate, but they're just trying to confuse us commentators, Reese.
Yes, it's always fun when teams run similar liveries. I know I've run into that issue an untold number of times in my commentary, quote-unquote, career, as there's pit stops in the GT4 class. Looks like Andrew Sharp, Gary Turner and Travis Pruitt making their way into the lane. We've also seen pit stops from Joshua Reed, Nicholas Larson, Dan Gorman, Matthew Cherwick as well. Unfortunately, it looks like Jean-Sebastien Bedard put it into the pits and is a retirement. He's been in there for going on 6 minutes now, which is a real shame for the number 13 Porsche Cayman.
We are past halfway. It's scheduled to be a 22-lap race. We're on lap 11. That squiggles around sometimes, but it's an open setup series. There's a fuel limit, so a pit stop is required. But how wide is this pit window going to be open? Can Sean Campbell maybe come in a lap later than Bergstrom? How much fuel has he been able to save? He's got a 1.2-second lead right now. All those questions will be resolved in a matter of moments here. Tobin and Rasmussen, they're trying to resolve things on track. There's a little bit of a clip of the grass from Rasmussen. Can he get by Tobin in the braking zone at Ravazza? He can't, but it's Porsche versus Aston Martin, one of the few Aston Martins in the field. It's going to be the battle for, I believe, the end of the top 10 once everything cycles through, once this pit cycle's over. And Rasmussen comes in.
Yep, and he is going to join Alexis Moisan, who has just completed his pit stop coming in from the lead of the GT4 class. I saw a hint of him putting it into reverse in the pit lane. He might have overshot his pit box by a couple of centimeters, but doesn't seem to have hurt him too much. Moisan with a 17.3 second stationary time. Not as long as Jared Farrell's, longer than Jared Farrell's stop, apologies, but it's still looking reasonable. It's on the longer side as theirs goes the Aston Martin past the BMW. That looked a little bit messy there coming into Villeneuve, and seems like he's having a bit of trouble controlling that thing. Is the car damaged? I mean, I see some damage to the front left. Has that affected the suspension?
I don't know what's going on there. That was Dan Gorman who he got by. That was a lapped car in GT4. It doesn't look like Kalen Tobin's got any damage, but we're gonna take a close look here up over Piratella. Is he struggling, or was that just a little shake ahead of Dan Gorman to say, I finally got by you, what are you doing?
Maybe. I don't know. It's difficult to tell exactly what's going through a driver's head sometimes, but now that he's past the BMW, yeah, it looks like the car is nice and stable, though looking a little bit more substandard as to the start of the race. Obviously wouldn't be ideal for aerodynamic performance, having that little dent with the front tire just slamming into the air. It looks like there's more pit stops. It looks like the SART teammates have come in GT4, Guarnieri and Mello. They are joined by Graham Wildman and Max Stevenson. Now, this will be crucial here. Remember, Moisan's pit stop, 17.3 seconds, 44.3 seconds total lane time. That's the number that these two are going to be driving to.
Thomas Dunn was able to go one extra lap. Good for him. We'll see if that does any good for him. But here is Alexis Moisan. likely still going to be your race leader. But Augustin Guarnieri in the box for 2 less seconds than Moisan was. With Moisan's little bobble, this could be closer than I think he wanted. As he comes out of the pits, there's Guarnieri. It's not close at all. Alexis Moisan will take the GT4 lead back once Thomas Dunn comes in, because he was able to cycle it around for 1 extra lap. He'll get all the glory, he'll get the TV time, but it will be Alexis Moisan in an even more dominant lead than he was before the pit cycle.
Yeah, looks like the outlap was fantastic there for Alexis Moisan. And yeah, looking at the pit stop times for the SART cars, Joaquin Melo wasn't that much quicker than Guarnieri through the whole pit lane. So potentially Moisan was just better at getting into and out of the pit box. Plus he had that big advantage coming in too, so he could afford to take a few more risks on his way through the pit lane. Looks like there's pit stops happening in LMP3 as well. Alec Bergstrom, Adam Brockway, and Sean Mulholland making their way in. Jason Drescher has already taken his stop. He is a lap into his second stint. So Mulholland's going to fall to the back. At the moment, it's looking like around 10.5 seconds is the average pit stop time for LMP3.
Now your race leader, Sean Campbell, He's hoping that he can use all of his Sean Campbell skills. He's been typing in our RaceSpotTV YouTube chat over the past couple laps as he's extended his lead over Bergstrom. But now it's critical moments. It's the in-lap, clonking the curbs through the Variante Alta. Just hoping that little checkup with Graham Wildman, a little checkup coming up here with one of the blue chip Porsches, or actually one of the SART cars, doesn't lose him too much time. Because it was very close. It was only about half a second separating him and Bergstrom when he came in. Is there going to be a hard right turn for Campbell this time? Yes, there is. Very close to the back of the Mercedes. But now it's the ultimate test for the Sean Campbell fuel-saving abilities. How much has he been able to save? Will his lead be as small as it once was? Or will it be about 3 seconds like it seems like it always is after the pit cycle? We've got to wait for that. Starker and Precker, they're going to try and resolve their differences on track, by the way, for P4. I have a feeling they're going to have to do a little bit of an off-stage moment here, pull hard right into pit lane, and then they can resume their battle right after that. But Precker stays out 1 more lap.
Yeah, probably trying to get a little overcut over Starker. Campbell's pit stop is complete, and, well, no surprise to see that it's way quicker than any LMP3 pit stop we've seen so far. 7.2 seconds, and I would be surprised if he doesn't keep the lead from that.
Yeah, you can see the difference there. Wesley Griffiths in the middle that kind of screws things up, but 6.6 seconds now separate Sean Campbell and Alec Bergstrom. That's a 6-second gain, I think, over the course of the pit cycle. Obviously, traffic helped some of that, but he was in the box for 3 less seconds than anybody else. He was fuel saving for that entire first stint, and that's terrifying, Reese. This has been every single week so far, 5 weeks in a row. Is there anything anybody else can do, or are they going to have to hope that things go a little bit Alexis Moisan style for Sean Campbell one of these races? Maybe he gets taken out in traffic, and that's the only way they're going to be able to win a race this season. It's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, I would say if I was any other LMP3 driver, I'd start doing what Sean Campbell's doing. You know, focus on fuel saving in the first part of the race and try and shorten the pit stop. I think that's the only way anyone could get an advantage. But Campbell coming out in traffic here. He's got Corey Precker just up ahead of him, who hasn't come in for his stop yet. We should expect him in at the end of this lap. We still have 6 drivers in LMP3 yet to take their stop. Morissette and Urexoy at the front of the field, then Precker, of course. Campbell should go back to the overall race lead in the next couple of laps. Does Precker file it into the lane? Morissette has just up ahead. Urexoy, it looks like, is going to come in too, and there goes Precker as well. Campbell back to the lead.
And then speaking of confusing us, Corey Precker and YS Motorsports, I said their livery looks like Ian Starker's livery. It also looks like Sean Campbell's livery. I feel like in prototypes it's normally the red, black, and white that we see a lot of, but now it's just it's the yellow, black, and white challenge here in LMP3.
Yeah, a lot of yellow. It's all well and good though. I think there's enough of a difference between the cars that we can tell them apart as long as we get a couple seconds to study them.
He should rotate the yellow and the white. It should be a highlighter yellow car with the white highlights, but you know, I'm not a livery designer. I'm just a commentator, so we'll see if Sean listens.
Yeah, well, we'll see. He has been active in the chat, hasn't he? So maybe we'll get a response from him at some point. Wesley Griffith making his way out of the lane, and it looks like, unfortunately, there's been a problem here for Tobin. Is this more contact with an LMP3? Oh, that's big.
It was purple on purple violence there as Jason Drescher in the LMP3 and in P4 tried to come through. He did come through, but there was some casualty there with Kalen Tobin, who already had a little bit of damage on the front end. He may have a little bit of damage on the rear end now as well. Battles for P12 heating up. Ryan Luna and, or rather Baron Glover and Paul Joseph Klist. Yet another yellow and white car from the front end. It's a far different situation on the rear end, though, as two of the most colorful cars in the field, they're battling for unlucky 13th of all things.
Yeah, trying to go up the inside at Tosa, but Baron Glover going in a little bit harder into the corner. You basically got to be well alongside before you attempt to move if you want to make your way past at that corner. And through these very quick turns, descending down the hill, there'll be a little bit of trouble for Urexoy. That's at Variante Alta. He does get back going, slots in between an LMP3 and a GT4, back down to 9th spot for him. That's a real shame for Errol. He's had a bit of a rough race since taking the pit stop, now down 4 positions from where he started.
He's had a rough season, unfortunately. It's been his season of learning in prototypes. He's been in GT3 and the PRL for so many seasons. Like I said, won the championship last season in GT3 fixed. Now he said, you know what, I'm gonna try something different here. I'm gonna take on the LMP3s. Unfortunately, yet again, it's an error, Urexoy.
Locking up on the way into Variante Alta, and it's so important not to lock up and get understeer coming into that chicane. It's a fast entry, and you've immediately got to turn left on the way out. Very difficult in any car, let alone a Ligier JS P320. Well, for Corey Precker, that's resulted in another position up. In terms of most positions gained, it looks like Sean Mulholland is the star in the LMP3 class. He is up 7 places into 7th and doing quite well, just up ahead of this pack that we're taking a look at here. Still going on between Wesley Griffith and Errol Urexoy, who's trying to recover.
For fans of David Lynch movies, it has been a pretty great Mulholland drive, up 7 spots. Joey Morissette up 5 spots. I think I heard some rumors from our producer beforehand that Joey Morissette may have given us his camera for the first time this season. I hope we get to see that before the end of the day, because we always love seeing the drivers' faces. We want to see everybody in the field, and that's always an open invite. There may only be 5 rounds to go in the season, but turn on your cameras, people. We want to see you.
Oh dear,
death in front of him.
Greg Doucette. Oh dear. Already not having a great time here. Greg Doucette having just come out of the pits, actually, with a 23.4 second stop. I think he was carrying some damage that he had to repair, but it's not gotten any better for him. Joey Morissette then, see what he can do in 5th place, trying to chase down Jason Drescher, but still a fair way behind. Drescher just exiting Tosa up ahead as he's about to come into Villeneuve. I think that gap is insurmountable at this stage.
Andrew Rasmussen's got to drive through for reaching the incident limit, but Joey Morissette, he's got the Houston Astros hat on. He's got some mysterious artwork behind him. It kind of looks like somebody's just scribbled a crayon on a piece of paper, but maybe that was maybe his kid made that or something. I'm gonna ask Joey about the lore.
Yeah, that will certainly be interesting to find out. More GT4 traffic for this battle for 13th, and oh, it's continuing to close up here. Now it's a 3-car battle. Nick Karangis is on the back of this fight too, and doesn't seem like there's much he can do at this stage. He's going to have to hope that Glover and Klist are able to get into each other, maybe run side by side for a few corners, and then he can make up that advantage. Still 4.5 minutes to go in the race. Anything can happen from here.
You want to get really confused, Reese. You see these 3 funky colored cars. They've all got polygons and every color in the book all over them. 3 different teams. None of these guys are teammates.
Oh dear. A little bit more differentiation in liveries would be nice, as, oh dear, we're hearing news that Errol Urexoy is out of the race, unfortunately. We won't be able to get a replay for that, but a very difficult day comes to an end for the number 63.
Nicholas Carangis racing for Throttle Thursday. Paul Joseph Clist racing, I believe, for Olympus Esports. And Baron Glover, I don't believe he's racing for a real team because he's registered as the wrong stuff. I think he's just racing on his own. But three of the most colorful liveries in the field. It's about to get even more colorful here for P12. Paul Joseph Clist and Nicholas Carangis. Throw a blanket over him, throw a GT4 in front to make things even more spicy. 3 wide, almost. Clist has to cover that off, and Carangis is going to try and make it work around the outside. Not going to be enough room left for him. He's going to have to stick in 14th for 1 corner longer. Clist is very wide, though.
Yeah, when you're battling in Tamburello, if you're holding the inside, you've got to be very careful of how the exit's going to be affected by that. And it looks to me like Clist has been able to recover ever so slightly, but he's clearly the one at the disadvantage here in this battle. Carangis trying to fight his way back up the field. Remember, Carangis started in 6th place, and he's had a very rough time out there. Alec Bergstrom, Adam Brockway, it looks like the Moradness cars are starting to take the fastest laps away from Sean Campbell, but there's nothing they can do at this point. He is still well in the lead by 4.5 seconds with only 2 minutes and 40 seconds to go.
I think the issue that befell Errol Urexoy, the fact that he was instantly removed from the race, I think he may have reached the instant limit and been disqualified from the race. You only get 13 instant points before you have to serve a drive-through, 17 instant points, and you're disqualified altogether. Unfortunately, I think Errol may have fallen foul of that. But he's a friend of the show, so we'd like to see him do well. And we hope that the second half of the season goes a little bit smoother for our old buddy Errol, because we know he has the speed to do that. Speaking of drivers who have speed, Andrew Sharp, all the way back in 13th. He was nearly a winner in the GR86 series last season. Had an early off, has been at the back of the field since lap 1. He's been driving forward since lap 1. He's 1 spot away from the top dozen with Jerry Turner ahead of him.
And coming down into Rivazza, Turner a little bit wide at the first of the Rivazza corners. How does the exit go for the BMW M4 with the Mercedes AMG chasing him? Should be some slipstream here for Andrew Sharp, but I don't know if he's close enough to really go for a move into Tamburello, especially considering they got Russell Peterson just popping into view right now. And let's see if he makes his way past them at this corner. The closing speed is pretty immense, and Peterson's going to at least go by Sharp here, but he won't be able to get up to Jerry Turner. It didn't seem like there was much of an advantage gained there for Sharp in the slipstream.
I don't think there was. You just saw Sean Campbell cross the line, though, to take the white flag. You see him in the background. It has been total dominance yet again for the 5th week in a row for Sean Campbell. Can he survive one more lap, though? He's got to get through Andrew Sharp. He's got to get through Jerry Turner. He's got Jennings ahead. But this could be a historic day for Sean Campbell. He already made it to P8 all-time in PRL wins. He's made a historic PRL career, and he's about half a track away from making it even more historic and winning again in LMP3.
Yeah, another beautiful drive from Sean Campbell so far. There's still battles to be worked out throughout the field. Bergstrom and Brockway, they're getting a bit close in traffic. I'm also seeing Luna and Kolaga, Morissette and Precker in GT4. Could still be up for grabs for 4th and GT4 between Graham Wildman and Jared Farrowell, but we'll have to wait and see on that. But as Sean Campbell makes his way out of Variante Alta, just a couple more corners to go, and he enjoys now a 6.2 second lead over Alec Bergstrom. Just a fantastic performance once again.
Peterson's going to get out of the way. Only 7 times before in the PRL has this number been uttered. 20 wins. It's only been done 7 times before, and now as Sean Campbell crosses the line, it is a 20th win in the Precision Racing League for Sean Campbell. He's got it done. He etches his name even deeper in the PRL history books. And he's going to be looking forward to the rest of the season to see if he can sweep a season for the 2nd time in his career. Alec Bergstrom comes home in 2nd. He did put the fight to Campbell at times. Adam Brockway did the same. It all came undone for Moradness, though. They're going to be coming home with 2nd and 3rd yet again. Back in GT4, Alexis Moisan, he's only got a couple more corners to go. We do all this talk about Sean Campbell making a historic PRL career, but Moisan's done the same so far. He went win, 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 win 10 times in GR86's last season, got defeated twice this season, but he's back to Alexis Moisan things lately, and he's going to be hitting unlucky 13 in the history books. Alexis Moisan wins for the 3rd time this season, and the 13th time overall. No surprise at Imola, one of the tightest and twistiest and most difficult tracks in the world. Campbell and Moisan show their dominance once again.
Yeah, simply fantastic stuff. You know, there's a clear pace difference here in the leaders in both of our classes, and it's basically a race for second, a race to see who can take advantage of any mistakes the leaders make. And I mean, Moisan, yeah, as you said, he's been human this season. We haven't quite seen the level of dominance we've seen from him in the past, but in the case of LMP3, can anyone overcome Sean Campbell?
That is going to be the question of the season. Also, Guarnieri and Mello coming home 2nd and 3rd in GT4. Good day for SART. It's a good day for teams coming home with 2 spots in the podium. Still waiting for the last couple stragglers to cross the line. With multi-class traffic, you tend to get some teams and or some drivers that basically have to turn an entire lap after the checkered flag before they get to the line. But it gives us a little bit of spotlight. I think that's Jennings coming across the line, Travis Pruitt in the Mercedes, and Edward Peltz. I think Edward Peltz had to serve a drive-through on the final lap. He's finally crossed the line. That is everybody. But after 22 laps, after 35 minutes, Baron Glover's still got to finish the race before we can look at the results, Reese.
Yeah, indeed. Just one more car to make their way across the line. I think we might be good at this stage.
There we go. The clock finally gave up. The clock finally gave up on Baron Glover, and now we officially see Sean Campbell for the 20th time in his PRL career and the 5th time this season. He is victorious for Marshmallow Racing. Moradness and their ginger liveried sponsor team, they're going to be happy with some big points in the team's championship. Another good race from Jason Drescher, kind of anonymous, 4th to 4th. Good points for him in the championship as well. Joey Morissette, he gives us his camera for the first time. He has his best race of the season in P5. Coincidence? I think not. Speaking of people who gave us their cameras, Corey Precker, from an early mistake on lap 1, drove all the way back up to P6, nearly got P5 in a photo finish of the line with Morissette. Mulholland, Griffith, Michael Kulaga, and Ryan Luna rounded out the top 10. Ryan Luna made up a good amount of spots to get up there in the top 10. Starker, Glover, Karangis, and Klist were the last drivers on the lead lap. Russell Peterson got into some trouble and went around. Ari Rexoy may have come afoul of the incident limit. Either way, he's the first car in the used car lot of cars with damage that didn't finish the race. Greg Doucette did make it to the finish, but he was 5 laps down. Andrew Kissinger and Ryan Kings, I don't believe either of them actually got off the grid in the first place. But in GT4, things were just as dominant. Alexis Moisan, 13 wins in the PRL, 3 wins this season. He is proving that he's still the guy to beat in this series. But Guarnieri and Mello, even though they see a 12-second gap up to Moisan, they were close early on. Guarnieri did lead a couple laps. They're going to take some confidence out of that for the rest of the season. Gerard Farewell, great drive from him to finish P4 for Scuderia Burb, and the actual Max Stevenson rounded out the top 5. Dunn, Larson, Nathan Jennings down to P8. Graham Wildman had to serve a drive-through in those last couple laps. That dropped him to P9. And Scott Lefebvre, an anonymous day, but sometimes that's a good thing in GT4. He rounds out the top 10. Will Jennings, first car 1 lap down. Jerry Turner and Andrew Sharp, they had a battle at the end of the race for P12. Pabiano, Tobin, Pruitt, Rasmussen, Peltz, and Alaka, and Dan Gorman round out the top 20. Very little in terms of DNFs in GT4. Matthew Zerwick did run into a little bit of trouble, though. Joshua Reed, even more trouble. And Jean-Sebastian Bédard, he got bodied in Tosa early on. He's 13 laps down, and the only true car of the used car lot with heavy damage. But as we finish cycling through 42 cars here, we've got the guy who is above them all, ready for interview, Sean Campbell. Yet again, 5th week in a row, 5th win in a row. It was pretty scary, though, in that opening stint, especially in that first intersection with traffic.
Yeah, the traffic, I was honestly not expecting it to be as terrifying as it was today. Just, I guess Imola's a lot more narrow than I remember it being.
It was a lot more narrow. But Sean, there's a big number here. For the first time, or not for the first time, but for your first time, you're a 20-time winner in the PRL across all the series you've done. Only 7 more drivers have more wins than you. How far do you think you can climb up the table? You think you can maybe catch Bradley Holly with 117?
Hopefully. Maybe someday. That's gonna take a while. Unless I end up doing 12 seasons.
Yeah, Brad's been around for the while, but I do have to ask you in seriousness. It is a milestone. We've seen you in basically every PRL series there is to offer. Why do you keep coming back here on Tuesdays and Mondays and Wednesdays? What brings you back?
Well, it's fun. You know,
That's an easy answer.
Yeah, it's if I don't. I mean, it's fun. It's kind of that simple. I enjoy driving, and it gives me an opportunity to drive.
I'm gonna put that in your resume. I enjoy driving. Period. Quotation marks. Congrats on the win, Sean. You've got 7th place all time right ahead of you. Greg Seitz on 21 wins. We'll see if you can match him next week.
Hopefully.
Sean Campbell coming home with the win. And unfortunately, Reese, the only driver who looks to want to talk to us this week. No Alec Bergstrom, no Adam Brockway. We'll give him a couple moments to catch up, but it's good to talk to Sean Campbell because he did put it very succinctly. It is fun to race in the PRL. That's why we see the best of the best either showing up here or developing. And Sean Campbell, he's making a name for himself, or he made a name for himself here.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it also speaks to just how popular the Precision Racing League is as well. You know, the fact that we have so many drivers competing across so many different series in this league. There's an awful lot to race for. There's an awful lot of fun to be had at the Precision Racing League.
Speaking of an awful lot of racing, there's even more racing coming up because that's only the first part of the double feature, because it's time for the GTP LMP2 series, and they take on, dare I say, Reese, the best track in the world at Watkins Glen International. We've flown across the Atlantic Ocean. We're in New York, and it's time for Watkins Glen. It's Watkins Glen time.
It is indeed, and we're racing at the boot layout for this round. We're going to the Circuit des 24 Heures du Mans next week with Sebring, Monza, Road America, and Red Bull Ring to round out the season. I said it last week, I'm going to say it again. I absolutely love this schedule for the GTP and LMP2 series. Just the perfect set of tracks for these cars. And what I'm expecting from Watkins Glen this week is slipstream. There's so many quick corners around here. The track is dominated by straights. We're going to be seeing some big moves. We're going to be seeing some right on the edge driving, especially through the S's and through the outer loop.
We know you're one of the great racetrack scholars of the world, Reese. Watkins Glen, it is my personal favorite racetrack in the world. I think there's nothing that beats it, but in your opinion, is it as good? Am I overrating it? What do you think?
Well, I'm Australian, so legally I have to say Mount Panorama, otherwise an angry mob will show up at my door.
That is valid. Jack Hedgecox, he's shown up every week here. He got the first 2 wins of the season in LMP2. Nicholas Shepard got the second 2 wins in LMP2. They're more separated than you'd think in the LMP2 Drivers' Championship, but remember, no drop weeks in consideration just yet. That'll come into effect after this week. We'll start to see things get a little bit closer there. Nicholas Goen may even come into consideration there. He's had 2 podiums in a row over the last 2 weeks. Chip Michaels, Josh Chinsky, Darian Roy, Ryan Chandler, Damian Benke, Caleb Lehman, and Josh Goen, the brother of Nick, round out the top 10 in those driver standings. It's getting closer in the team standings in LMP2. Goen Racing, they've really cast their net wide. They've had Hedgecox win 2 races. Chip Michaels scored a lot of points for them. But SRT Esports, they've got some strong drivers as well. Chinsky, Caleb Lehman, Kyle Strykars, they're chasing them down. Goen Racing Ruby as well, tied with SRT Esports in second there, and a few other teams. Whataback, we'll see them picking up points over the season. Box 5 Motorsports, they're a 1-car team with Nicholas Shepard. He's going to be wishing he had some teammates because he could have fought for the team's championship, but alas, it's going to be a 1-car effort for Box 5. In GTP, it's a very interesting picture in the Drivers' Championship because the top 2 in the championship, neither of them have won a race so far. Colin Hopkins, against all odds, leads the Drivers' Championship ahead of Dave Menino. The only reason they're up there is because they haven't taken any penalty points so far. Pat Pelshaw, he should be in the lead of the Drivers' Championship right now. He took 25 penalty points in the opening 2 rounds for getting into incidents. He's looking forward. Mac Miller, he's P4. And Michael Diaz won 2 out of 4 of the opening rounds, was disqualified for reaching the incident limit from the previous round, and because the drop weeks haven't come into consideration yet, he's got to take that right now. He should be He should be up near the lead of the championship after next week, though. Dring, Evans, O'Connor, Ridgway, and Hebert, they're probably going to be the fight for the last couple spots in the top 10. That should be legitimate even when the drop weeks come in. In the team's championship, SRT, even more shocking, Reese. Dave Menino, the lead driver for SRT. I don't know how they're in the lead of the team's championship right now, because Precision Racing Esports, with their many, many teams, Fiercely Forward with Daniel Harris, who finally won for the first time last week, they're nowhere to be seen, while SRT Esports have been dead consistent at the head of the field.
Yeah, consistency has been the key in GTP, hasn't it? On the subject of Daniel Harris, part of the Fiercely Forward Yellow team, you know, he's had a pretty rough season so far. Yes, he did win at Road Atlanta, finally, but he had 2 DNFs in a row just before that, and he's down in 20th in the Drivers' Championship. So how different would these standings be looking if he was able to hold on in those last 2 rounds?
Is it too late for Daniel Harris to maybe put up an attack on the Drivers' Championship? Is it too late for Fiercely Forward to put an attack on the Team's Championship? They're only 70 points off the lead, so anything is possible. But practice is ticking into the final seconds now at Watkins Glen. We're about to get into qualifying. 10 minutes of closed qualifying, because there are 2 classes, GTP and LMP2. We don't want to put them on the same track at the same time. We'll see. Can Daniel Harris go 5 for 5? He's been on pole for 4 out of the opening 4 rounds. He's been untouchable, just as Sean Campbell's been in qualifying, or Alexis Moisan as well in GT4. But we'll see if he can do it yet again, as practice has come to an end. Checkered flag is out, and we'll wait and see who's going to be the first takers out on track when qualifying begins.
Now, it looks like already Robert Ridgway is making his way out in his 117 Cadillac, and Mark Kalin, the first LMP2 to emerge onto the racetrack. They each get 4 laps over the last 10 minutes, over the next 10 minutes, sorry. And considering times in practice, it looks like they'll have no trouble getting all of those laps in. Let's see then what Dave Menino, Anthony Dring, Robert Ridgway, etc. will be able to do here in this session. Keeping an eye on Ridgway as he makes his way into the boot section. Now, this part of the circuit, Joey, is one where we're probably going to be seeing some of the more interesting traffic interactions. It's such a fast circuit, Watkins Glen. You see how much speed Ridgway is carrying through these corners. This is actually pretty much the slowest section of the circuit.
Yeah, and I know it's controversial, Reese, but I do like the boot. I like the layout without the boot as well. I like the NASCAR layout. I like the classic layout with no bus stop, but I'm a fan of the boot. I think it makes for good racing. I think it's fun to drive. I don't know why people don't like it.
Yeah, I don't either. It's a really entertaining part of the circuit, and it tends to be the part where I make up the most time. We will see then what he can do, making his way through into the last couple of corners. Robert Ridgway out of the last turn at Watkins Glen to begin a lap around here. It's amazing how much speed the GTPs carry into turn 1, but the exit is so important up through the S's.
Gotta make sure not to get too wide out there. There's certainly track limits out there. You may not think about that with the way they race through turn 1 in NASCAR. They tend to use every last inch of the runoff, but you do have to be careful through there. I think you have to keep one wheel on the curb, and then you're good in terms of track limits. But if you go a little bit too wide out there, you start to rack up those incident points. And remember, you only get 13 of those before you have to serve a drive-through. This is definitely a track where you can build up those incident points very early. I'm speaking from experience.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I can speak from experience as well. It's very easy to pick up off tracks around Watkins Glen, though it is a little bit easier now with the new scan and somewhat relaxed track limits at turn 1. Also coming up through the bus stop as well. This is looking like a clean lap from Ridgway so far. He is hoping that he's able to hold on and put a good banker lap on the board. His fastest lap in practice was a 1 minute 27.996. Can he improve on that?
Atomic Racing driver in the Cadillac coming through the last corner of the boot here. One of the most difficult corners as it's up over the hill, off camber. He gets to breathe for just a moment through the second to last corner, on the brakes for the final corner, flicking it in. First lap on the board for Robert Ridgway if he can keep it out of the wall. And it's going to be a 131, just under a 132, 131.988 for Robert Ridgway. That puts him on the board. It's not good enough to beat Dave Menon, though. He needs to pick up 3 seconds if he wants to put it on pole.
Well, Daniel Harris was the quickest of the GTPs, 1 minute 26.9 in practice, and Rafael Russo already starting to make his case, getting down into the 27.7s. Andres Espinosa also up against Dave Menino there as Nicholas Gowen goes to P1 in the P2 class. There goes Colin Hopkins, meanwhile, second place. And championship leader is Colin Hopkins, so this could be some good potential for points if he can hold on to that position. Jack Hedgecock's up into third in the P2 class as more times start flowing in here.
And look at what Ryan O'Connor has given us for the first time. We mentioned this in the GT3 broadcast last week. We wanted to see a driver's VR feed and kind of get a driver's eye, and Ryan Connor has given us exactly that. We can ride on board with Ryan Connor, literally, and see what Ryan O'Connor's seeing through his VR. And I'm very glad for this. This will give us a great chance to maybe ride for a full lap with him here in qualifying.
Yeah, always interesting to see the driver's view, including the cursor, apparently, that has been left on screen. But you get a good sense for visibility in these GTPs, don't you? I mean, if you're racing on a single monitor in these cars, it's always difficult. There's pretty much just a letterbox to look through to the front, and the A-pillar is so thick. But in VR, you can at least see a little bit more out to the sides, and man, the amount of shaking that's going through him at the moment as he negotiates this section of the circuit, it is immense. These cars are supremely physical to drive.
It's just remarkable to see because it's a view we don't see in virtual racing. We see it in real racing sometimes. You'll have the visor cam, you'll have the eye cam that we've seen sometimes in NASCAR and IndyCar and Formula One. But it's a new innovation for sim racing. Obviously, Ryan O'Connor, we're going to tell him to move the cursor next week, but I'm looking forward to seeing this in the weeks to come because this is a great view. You can see his head turning. You can see him searching for the apex up over the top of the hill here. It's an apex that you can never find, though, because it seemingly never comes. And through the last couple of corners, see if Ryan O'Connor can improve. He's been a solid driver this season. He's had many top 10s. Can he jump up into the top 10 on this lap as he crosses the line? Ryan O'Connor from 15th. Where's he going to be? Still 15th, potentially. Doesn't look like there was any improvement for Ryan O'Connor.
Well, he certainly had fun doing it as well. Caleb Lehman also with a VR view here, though it looks to me like it's more of a head-mounted webcam at this stage. I'm seeing traces of that being a camera feed of a monitor. Still, an interesting view, and it definitely gives you an idea of how much head movement there is even on drivers who use monitors, and the P2 is a physical car to drive as well. I'd argue a bit more difficult on throttle than the GTPs. No, it is VR. My apologies.
I think it may just be a difference in equipment between Ryan O'Connor and Caleb Lehman, or maybe even a difference in internet data transfer abilities, but it still looks good. Maybe a little bit more washed out, though.
Sorry about that, Caleb, as that was a wall hit for him, and that's going to be the end of that qualifying run, I think, with only 3 minutes in the session to go. He'd have to absolutely nail the outlap and do a super fast hot lap to get the time on the board before the session timer hits 0. Mac Miller in the Cadillac GTP, currently 9th at the moment, but he's gone down to 10th as Zach Hebert has gone up to P7. That's a fantastic improvement there for car 511.
And notice who isn't on pole right now. Daniel Harris, who topped practice, who's been on pole for the first 4 times this season. His first run put him P5, now P6 as Ryan O'Connor gets a fantastic lap in to put him up in P4. Harris is running out of time. He needs to nail this final lap because this will be his last chance. If he gets the slightest bit of an off track, if he makes the slightest bit of a mistake, he's going to be starting deeper than he ever has in this field.
Yeah, Harris is an incredibly quick driver, isn't he? He holds the world record in this car at Road Atlanta, as he pointed out last week, and was certainly the fastest driver there. Looks like an improvement for Michael Diaz as well, putting Pat Pelchat down to 2nd place. Let's see what the times are like here for Daniel Harris, though. Coming out of the boot section, you got to use all of the curb and then some on the exit. Very forgiving on the off tracks coming out of that corner. A little bit of a twitch there.
Sorry to interrupt you, Reese. I think this may actually be an out lap. I think I've just realized we saw Daniel Harris in the pits before this lap, so this is going to be a race to the line. He's got to get to the line before 1 minute and 27 seconds to go. I think he's going to be good. But that was very, very close. Now it's time for his final chance, and he can't afford any mistakes.
Okie doke. So, turn 1 then. How smooth is he on the turn? And he's making those micro adjustments. And
was that a 1X? Was that an off track already?
It looked close. It looked very close. But he's continuing on. I would think if it was an off track, he would have pulled off right away.
Yeah, I think it looks like he's good. He's not going to give up, but I sure hope he didn't 1X that instantly. This is the ultimate pressure, though. He's got one chance. That's an off track. That's the lap over.
Yeah,
Daniel Harris, the guy who's been on pole for the first 4 rounds this season. That wasn't very nice to that Cadillac. He's putting it out of his misery, and he's going to have to start P6, and he's going to be looking forward for the first time ever in this series.
Yeah, let's see how he's able to make those passes where it counts. He'll have to sit in the slipstream. It's all about drafting here at Watkins Glen. It's basically the oval version of a road course, as Chip Michaels is coming to the line, one of the last cars to set a qualifying time, and it's not going to be an improvement on his best. Meanwhile, the 8th place car of Aiden Young is not going to make it. We see that Josh Goen makes his way across and ended up just finishing there. It's looking like there were very infinitesimal improvements, if any at all, in the last few moments of that session, Joey, but it looks like we have a grid sorted here for Watkins Glen.
Indeed we do. As the clock ticks to 0, it is a very unfamiliar pair of pole sitters. Dave Menino, 2nd place in the championship right now. He's been up there due to consistency. He's had podiums, he's had top 5s, but for the first time all season, he's the fastest of anybody, and he's going to lead us to green alongside Michael Diaz, who has won 2 races this season. Pat Pelshaw won the opening round of the season. He starts alongside his teammate and our very generous VR provider, Ryan O'Connor. Rafael Russo, great qualifying from him. He starts alongside championship leader all the way down in P6, Colin Hopkins. Daniel Harris, fastest driver in qualifying in this series, off pace today. 7th place from the fiercely forward driver. He starts alongside his teammate Aiden Young on row number 4. Both of them are going to be looking fiercely forward. Zach Hebert, P9, starts alongside Mac Miller. And then Anthony Dring and Robert Ridgway round out the top 12. 1 second separating 1st down to 12th. Andres Espinoza, Dave Menino's teammate, looking for some good points for SRT Esports Black. Jeff Evans, the top Acura in P14 ahead of his teammate Bradley Holly. Nick Silver had a fantastic run in the PRL NASCAR Xfinity Series so far, the Grand National Series, I should say, so far this season. He's down at P16. Then Brett Thurman and Nicholas Schwartz round out 18 GTP entrants here at Watkins Glen. Only 2.5 seconds separate all of them. Nicholas Goen on pole for the first time in PRL. He starts alongside his Goen racing teammate. They're on 2 separate squads, but Jack Hedgecock's championship leader, winner of the first 2 rounds of the season. Could he win his 3rd? He's got Nicholas Shepard, who's won the last 2 rounds right behind him, and a new name making his PRL debut, or at least making his season debut, Doug Sorrentino. He's got a pair of Joshes behind him with Josh Chinsky and Josh Goen. Row number 4, 7th and 8th, Blake Ziti and Jeremy Carter. Kyle Strykar's back in the field. He starts P9 alongside the head honcho of the PRL. He's the guy who owns this whole shebang, Jerome Bertillon. Caleb Lehman, lower than he would have liked. He starts alongside Mark Kalin, recently married Mark Kalin, I may add. Unlucky 13th went to Chip Michaels. He starts alongside Chris Rabel. Even more whatabacks with Eric Harmon. He starts alongside Darian Roy, Chase Kaufman, and Ryan Chandler. The second Chandler you'll see this week, actually, in P18. Doug Evans looking forward in P19 alongside Alexander Good. And Brian Hoskins rounds out 21 cars in this LMP2 field. 21 LMP2s, 18 GTPs. Felipe Ciramello didn't get a qualifying lap in. I'm not sure if we'll see him on the grid, but that is just under 40 cars here at Watkins Glen, Reese. And this is about to get crazy with a new driver up the head of the field.
Yeah, what can Dave Menino do from the pole position in the GTP class? Nicholas Goen as well on pole for a very rare occasion in the LMP2 class. He's actually been asking in the chat how big of a gap to leave to the GTPs. That shows you how long it's been for him. So it's going to be difficult to negotiate the start here at Watkins Glen in both of these classes, but still, good amount of space being left between the classes. We should see a good amount of racing before we start having traffic become an effect on the racing.
Well, Reese, we've got 2 pole sitters, GTP and LMP2. We've got Dave Menino and we've got Nicholas Goen. How many poles total do they have in the PRL?
I would say 1 each.
Zero for either of them. First pole for both of these drivers. It's going to be a new experience for both of them, and that's always a tough thing when you're starting from your first pole and you're at the head of the field for the first time. That's a pressure unlike anything else.
Yeah, absolutely it is. So, I mean, technically I'm correct. They now have 1 each at this moment in time. Yes, of course. I'm always going to pull up on the technicalities here. Going around the pace lap at the moment, the drivers will be sussing out the track and getting used to the temperatures in this session. Now, I am a Celsius man, so my figures might be a little off from what the American audience will expect, but 32 degrees Celsius track temp, 89 Fahrenheit. That's looking like a reasonably warm track. It means that the tires are going to come up to temperature very quickly, but they might have to be careful of overheating them, especially with how much load is put through the tires in these high-speed corners.
That's a pretty hot old day for upstate New York in October. It's just started to be sort of autumnal here in Connecticut, just a few hours south, so I would imagine it would be a little bit cooler than that, but autumn has not quite sprung in upstate New York. A couple corners to go before Dave Menino leads the field to the green for the first time in his PRL career. I'm going to put you on the spot, Reese. In GTP and LMP2, who gets it done? Do Menino and Goen win their first races, or they can have to open the door for somebody else?
Well, I mean, I'm always happy to support the underdog. I'm going to back Menino and Goen to hold on to victory, but I'd be interested to see what Diaz, Pelchat, and particularly Daniel Harris can do in GTP. Let's keep an eye out, though, as we're about to take the start. iRacing Porsche pace car is going to pull out of the final corner here, and for the first time in the Precision Racing League, a driver who's been here for years and years, Dave Menino, finally scores his first pole. He finally sees the green flag for the first time, and we're racing in the GTP LMP2 series here at Watkins Glen. Green flag flies for GTP. They file into turn 1 single file, just as the green flag flies for LMP2 a few corners early. Nicholas Goen leading. There's already trouble in turn 1 in GTP. Off the road goes Anthony Dring. LMP2 crossing the line for the first time. Are they going to have the same trouble into turn 1? They're 3 wide for 5th. There's a dive for 4th. I think that may be Chip Michaels. That's resolved as we file into the bus stop for the first time on the left side of your screen. Yeah, Nick Goen losing the lead for LMP2, and Menino, yes, going off the circuit there, and unfortunately falling back down to 2nd and potentially 3rd now as Pat Pelchat sees the opportunity. Spin for Colin Hopkins. The championship leader is off.
I think that, Colin Hopkins in trouble. Daniel Harris around. One of the fiercely forward cars. They look identical, but there's some hard contact there, and I think that was... We don't know who that was. We'll identify that when we can, but...
It was Harris.
It was
Harris going into Hopkins.
It was officially Colin Hopkins, but there was trouble all sorts of places. Menino from the lead. He only got the lead about 3 corners in his PRL career before he had to give it up. The bus stop bites, cold tires bite, and Dave Menino already in trouble. There's even more trouble for Colin Hopkins, though.
Yeah, well, he's been struggling to get that going after Daniel Harris ran into the back of him, coming into the ankle of the boot, so to speak, and there's a lot of damage on that car. He's going to have to limp that thing back to the pits. How long is that damage going to take to repair? Well, Michael Diaz has made his way into the lead in the GTP class. Jack Hedgecox finds his way into the lead of LMP2, with Goen not getting the quickest of starts and falling under a lot of pressure from Doug Sorrentino as well.
Jack Hedgecox out in the lead in LMP2. We saw this in the first 2 rounds of the season. When Jack Hedgecox gets up front, he is very, very hard to catch. Lots of racing to go, and we haven't even started to talk about the mixing of the GTPs and the LMP2s. That'll come up in a couple of laps' time. Here's what happened to Colin Hopkins on lap 1, and there was a teammate involved there. Was that his teammate Daniel Harris,
Yes.
or even Aiden Young that got into the back of him?
I took a look on my end. It was Daniel Harris. Just too late on the brakes and went straight into the back of him, which is obviously not ideal.
Oh dear, fiercely forward, deeper in the field than they would like. Daniel Harris for the first time not at the head of the field. And this is what happened into the boot. Bonk.
Yeah, that was a hefty whack to the rear, and I'm sure that there was some profuse apologies from Daniel Harris, but well, they have to keep going. Still plenty of time left in this race, 42 minutes. There is time to be made up.
Harmon's got into some trouble. The Whataback driver, Eric Harmon, in LMP2 into turn 1. Didn't actually get touched by Ryan Chandler there. He did get touched after his spin, though.
Yeah, very easy to lose the rear end into the first turn here at Watkins Glen. And out on the exit, not much room if you're already committed to coming out of the corner at a good rate of speed. So already some chaos happening, already some big names out of the running in this race. Now it's up to everyone else to pick up the pieces, and it's Michael Diaz who is leading the way in GTP right now, but it looks like Pelchat is starting to round up on him. Got to keep an eye out for Ryan O'Connor and Dave Menino behind, though. The pole sitter back to 4th in GTP, but he's not letting them go.
It was just one mistake for Dave Menino on lap 1. Led up the hill, but then coming into the bus stop, threw it off the road through the second half. Probably had to serve a little bit of a slowdown. But now he's on a recovery drive. You do have to remember that Dave Menino did put it on pole. He was faster than anybody else. Now he's actually got to make some overtakes as there's a huge drift through the bus stop. Incredible save for Blake Zeedy. Well done, Blake Zeedy, the driver from New York. He's putting on a show in his home race.
That he is. Goodness, it looked like he was actually almost having a move put on him there by Jeremy Carter and just took a bit too much curb through the inside of the inner loop. Fortunately, yes, he has been able to keep going.
Put that one in the history books, or at least put that one in the highlight books for this season. Well done, Blake Zeedy, for not turning that into Bake Zeedy. So back in line for him, back in line behind Chinsky. We've got a bit of calm, I think, for the first time in this series in quite a while. Everybody's managed to single file themselves out for just a moment. It's trying to regain the bearings, trying to get back into racing mode.
Oh, no.
And as I say that, there is absolute destruction. It's a full track blocker. Well done, Darian Roy, for making it through. That is not what you like to see, and that's it's a very tight section of the track. The 63 of Chip Michaels still not able to get out of the way. Now he finally does.
Yeah, finally. That was unfortunate. I think it was Caleb Lehman, who spun in the number 42, just took too much grass on the exit. And yeah, unfortunately, once you spin through that section, you've got Armco barriers either side, and approaching cars don't have anywhere to go.
Yep, that was a commentator's curse, I think, Reese. Sometimes I doubt the existence of the commentator's curse, but there's even more huge trouble. Nicholas Shepard, championship contender, won the last 2 races. He's not moving out of the runoff. That is a destroyed Dallara LMP2. It may be a safer barrier, but not soft enough for him to keep going.
Yeah, it looks like the rear left suspension was destroyed from that. Shepard was trying to make a move on Doug Sorrentino at the bus stop, and just a little bit of contact flung him straight into the wall. That's such a shame there for Nicholas.
Here we go, side by side. Oh my goodness. And that's a hellacious impact. If it is any respite for him, though, drop weeks do start to come into consideration after week 5, so he can drop this week. That's a dangerous game to play, though, Reese, because once you've used up your drop week in a DNF, you can't afford any more bad races.
Yeah, again, consistency is rewarded, and you got to make sure that any blips are kept under control. The battle between Sorrentino, who made contact with Shepard, and also Josh Goen coming into turn 1. This is the battle for 3rd. Oh dear, Pelchat.
Trouble in GTP for Pat Pelchat. Was running 2nd, was chasing down Michael Diaz. You saw him fall down the timing screens, and this is why, through the bus stop. Put that in the Blake Zeedy save folder, though, because There's not a scratch on that GTP.
Yeah, very well recovered. He got straight on the brakes to get the car straightened out and managed to avoid hitting the wall as well. So, obviously not ideal, but it could have been worse.
Could have been far worse, and things are still heating up in LMP2. I said we could have a little bit of calm. I said we were running single file, and every driver in the field said, no, that's not going to happen. We're going to heat things up again. We're going to start throwing everything at each other. Let's see, as we come through the toe of the boot here, Joshua Chinsky was all over the back of Joshua Goen. Jeremy Carter's around there as well. They are single file through the toe of the boot, but they're not going to stay like that for long.
No, it looks like Sorrentino, having made the move on Goen, has been able to get a tiny bit of a gap here. I think consistency on track has been the enemy of a lot of drivers here. They've just been dipping wheels into the grass or making minor mistakes, getting crossed up over the bumps and the curbs here. That's what's defining the racing so far, and we're not far into the race either. Who knows how that's going to affect things going forward. At the end of this 45 minutes, you see how much track they're taking on the way into the final corner. Meanwhile, Pat Pelchat on the recovery. It looks like he is lining up Mac Miller as he's just made his way back past Zach Hebert. But looking at that 919 Cadillac, man, he is struggling with that rear end in a few places, isn't he?
All sorts of wiggly, and this is an open setup series as well. Both the LMP3-GT4 Challenge and the GTP LMP2 series have the option for drivers to build whatever setups they desired or to run whatever makes them most comfortable. I think whatever Pat Pelchat has chosen, though, is certainly not making him comfortable. He's been all over the place. He's been sliding, and it's a reasonably hot track. It's going to be difficult for him to get it back in the zone.
Yeah, potentially he was focusing on the qualifying performance of that setup, making sure that he had the turn-in he needed to set those fast times, but unfortunately in race conditions, the setup probably not to his liking as the fuel burns off, as the tires get up to temperature. Maybe he'll have a better time of it, but as things stand, it's looking like a bit of a nervous machine right now.
Teammate ahead, he's got a not teammate behind because he's got Hebert and he's got Daniel Harris as well. Both of them looking forward side by side through the heel of the boot, though. It's Joshua Chinsky and Jeremy Carter all over each other, all over the place. This is the hottest battle on track. The last spot in the top 5 in LMP2. Everybody wants it.
Yeah, both Sorrentino and Goen have managed to break away from these guys. Goen just getting into the wall ahead of them, though, might bring him back into this fight. It was a small hit, but it could be enough to bring Chinsky back into it and potentially defend from Carter, Ziti, Kyle Streichars, and Jerome Bertillon hanging onto the back of this pack as well.
Had some trouble for Jeff Evans in GTP. He's had to tow it back to the pits. He was the lead Acura in qualifying. That is huge clonk of the curb, a spin through the second half of the bus stop, and even with sliding through the entire bus stop and slowing that thing down was not enough for Jeff Evans. That is an Acura that will go no further.
Yeah, the rear end was destroyed on that thing. Unfortunately, wasn't quite able to save it in the way Pat Pelchat did earlier, and I mean, this is a pretty historic venue, Watkins Glen. It's had some safety changes over the years, but it's still a pretty dangerous circuit if you have an off, and the drivers need to be very careful of that. Here's Chinsky then. What does he need to do to defend here from Jeremy Carter? Remember, they do have a pit stop coming up, so there's potential for him to defend on the pit cycle, but being as far behind Goen and Sorrentino as he is, he might be having trouble getting slipstream and saving fuel.
It's been so difficult in LMP2, especially all of this season. We've seen these clusters in the middle of the field. There tends to be a leader who runs away a little bit. The battle for the podium can be heated up a little bit, but the talent is so even. The drivers are so even for P5 basically to P10 that every single race we've just seen a cluster of cars like this that battle for the entire 45 minutes. It's got to be exhausting, but it's certainly exhilarating to watch. These are the hardest fought battles of anywhere.
Yeah, and I'm really enjoying it so far. I notice for Carter, he's been diving under the brakes. He's been trying to make up time on Chinsky by slowing down, but that has killed his momentum coming up through the S's, and now he has to defend from Ziti, who, remember, had that epic save at this location earlier. manages to keep the car straight through that section for the time being. But, you know, if you're this early in a race, Joey, and you're battling as hard as this, maybe it's the smart thing to just back off slightly and try to consolidate your position. You want to try and buy a ticket to the last 5 minutes of a race like this. If you're driving hard early on, yes, you might have some fun in battles. Yes, you might be able to make up positions, but one mistake can destroy it all.
Speaking of mistakes, Zach Hebert got into trouble just a couple of moments ago into turn 1. The black and white car of Hebert locks the brakes, locks it up, and spins it around right as they were getting through Brian Hoskins, the first driver in LMP2 at the back of the field.
And Hebert now down into 11th in GTP. He's down 2 from where he started, but he obviously had made up a lot more than that beforehand. Real shame there. But there's still a chance for him to come back.
There's a battle for the podium in GTP. Things have separated a little bit between Diaz and O'Connor. About 2.5 seconds separate the teammates there. But Dave Menino, Rafael Russo, Aiden Young, Pat Pelshaw, and even more behind, this battle is starting to close up. It's starting to heat up, and it is not resolved. Something you do notice in the GTP field now, though, is that at the start of the season we had a couple of Porsches, we had a couple of Acuras. Now it is Cadillac 1 through 13 and 3 Acuras left from 14 to 16. It's become a Cadillac challenge of sorts.
Yeah, looking like it. I mean, we didn't even see any BMW M hybrids at the last round at Road Atlanta, did we?
No, I don't think there's been any of them all season. It's a shame.
No. Yeah, interesting. I mean, you know, it is interesting, isn't it? Because, like, obviously this being a hosted league. Oh, okay, I'll drop that point for later. Aiden Young defending from Pat Pelshaw. Oh, dearie me.
Rafael Russo
huge.
hard into the wall as well. The bus stop takes yet another victim. As the battle for the podium was heating up, it's heated up a little bit too much for Russo. That is a destroyed Cadillac GTP. He's not even going to be able to drive it back to the pits. That's Aiden Young taking a little bit of grass in the heel of the boot. It's not going to stop heating up. There's still 30 minutes to go, or we're not even a third of the way through the race, and we've already lost multiple drivers to the peril of the bus stop.
Watkins Glen is such a fast circuit that any tiny mistake can spell doom. I mean, at Road Atlanta, we saw some pretty big mistakes as well, but I'd say that the average speed of that track is a darn sight lower than Watkins Glen. With the amount of load being put through the tires, with how quickly these cars go through the corners, any infinitesimal slide can turn into something huge.
Go on board with Jerome Bertiome in the battle in LMP2 because he's the caboose. He's the back part of the train. He's just seeing everybody battle ahead of him. He's got Kyle Strykars directly ahead of him. He may be looking at a move into the heel of the boot. But as we see Jerome for the first time in a couple of weeks, I'm happy to say that the guy whose camera always seemed to get higher and higher and higher to the point where it was almost vertical down to the bottom of his head, he's got a more reasonable angle this week.
Yes, he has. We're able to actually see the concentration on his features as he looks into every corner. One of the drivers running either a triple screen setup or an ultra wide. Looks more like a triple screen to me with the angle there, which will certainly help his view. Coming into the heel of the boot, a little bit of understeer for him, but he can use the runoff area to keep the momentum up through this section. And then down into, up into the left-hand hairpin, coming up to the last few corners. So important to get the exit right through there. And that left-hander is one of the corners around this track that I can never get right, Joey. You're going up over the crest, as it looks like Strykars pitting ahead of him, as is Ziti and Chinsky. Okay, we have our first pit stops in LMP2 that are scheduled at least. 3 drivers decided to do it at the same time. They want to try and preserve some slipstream here and not be caught out.
These are very early stops. We normally see the LMP2s able to go a very, very long while later than the GTPs. But I think all 3 of those drivers have realized we can come in early and still make it to the end. We can just reverse the usual strategy. We'll see how that pays off for him. Jerome Bertiome's going to be happy to make it through there. Battle for P5 now. Last spot in the top 5. Aiden Young and Mac Miller. Miller started P10, if my memory serves me correctly. He's made up a ton of spots based on the mistakes of his competitors. I don't know how familiar you are with rap that's popular with high school and college students in the U.S., Reese, but Mac Miller.
Don't worry, I know.
It's a legendary name, and it's always interesting to see him show up here. I imagine we're making some Pittsburgh college students very happy if they're watching right now.
Yeah, I'm sure as well. Oh, here we go. Some P2 traffic for Miller. That's Doug Evans, who's gone very wide in the bright green machine to let them go. And Aiden Young is really facing up against it at the moment, trying to keep up with Pat Pelshaw as well, who's dealing with Chase Kaufman. Oh, here we go. There's a gap that potentially opens, but boxed in for Mac Miller. Oh, no, that's huge. Oh, that's taken Pelshaw out too.
Going bowling with Mac Miller, unfortunately, through traffic. Huge damage for Aiden Young. Pat Pelshaw collected as well. Some LMP2s through there, too. I was not seeing that coming, but as they interacted with traffic for the first time, drivers tripping over each other. Doug Evans and LMP2, who's behind all that, says, thank you very much for passing me earlier than that. And that is calamitous for Pat Pelshaw, championship contender. Mac Miller, who's having a great drive forward. That's about 7 drivers coming down pit lane after one incident.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's disastrous. Look at this from the drone chopper view. Miller just too late on the brakes. Couldn't see the braking point.
Oh, Harris got hit too.
In front of him. Oh, he did, yeah. Harris already having a rough race with potential front-end damage from his contact with Colin Hopkins earlier. And that is another appointment with the wall and scrubbed tyres for him. Daniel into the pits, no surprise, as Pelshaw and Miller evidently will be getting a lot of damage repaired. Harris, though, already away, and Miller is away. 30 seconds stationary for him.
Harris is also away, but by away,
yes.
He quit the session.
Yes, yeah, apologies. My timing screen was acting up on me there. That's a real shame for Daniel Harris. That is another retirement to put on the long, ever-growing list of retirements this season.
Yeah, that's 4 out of 5 races for Daniel Harris, and only one of those DNFs, if my memory serves me correctly, was actually his fault. So that's going to be eternally frustrating for him. It's going to be frustrating for Fiercely Forward, because with him, with Aiden Young and Colin Hopkins, Fiercely Forward have a 100% DNF rate in this race, unfortunately. So terrible luck for them. It's been not been a good day at Watkins Glen, but all the leaders are in. Michael Diaz is in, O'Connor is in, Menino is in. A couple drivers able to extend it 1 lap longer. Ridgway, Espinoza, Silver in the gang. But this is critical for Michael Diaz to see if he can maintain that 3.5-second gap he had over his teammate Ryan O'Connor, or is he going to lose a little bit in the pits? It's a race of fuel saving and a race on pit lane.
Yeah, so obviously Miller and Pelshaw pitting for damage. It was half a minute stationary for them, but it looks like Diaz already down off the jacks, and hello. Looks to me like Dave Menino has gotten a much shorter stop there. 21.9 seconds versus 28.8 for Diaz. Has
now the real question, Reese, has Dave Menino underfueled the car, or has Michael Diaz overfueled the car? That's the question that remains. Judging by the fact that it was 28 seconds in the box, I have to imagine that Diaz has overfueled the car, but has Dave Menino also put enough fuel in the car?
Well, Menino with the quickest pit stop of the GTPs that have taken a stop so far. Looks like Zach Hebert stopped for 23.8 seconds, Ryan O'Connor for 26.6. So I think you average that out. That's what we would expect for the average pit stop time. So Menino still incredibly quick through the lane. Yeah, I got to say I'm a little worried for him at this stage.
Well, we've got an interesting run to the end now. Can Dave Menino make an economy run work? Robert Ridgway, he was able to extend this for 1 lap longer than anybody else other than Espinoza. Silver and Thurman are in as well. Anthony Dring, he's able to go 1 lap longer. Remember, he had a big spin at the bus stop early on, didn't get any damage from it. He's able to go 1 extra lap. Holly's able to go 1 extra lap. Schwartz is able to go 1 extra lap. Evidently, it's good to be in an Acura if you want to save fuel today.
And I think especially for Dring, trying to extend that first stint as much as possible could potentially lose him a little less time. considering his spin earlier. Ridgeway's away, 23.2 seconds stationary. Diaz and O'Connor have already made their way past him. 20.7 seconds stop for Nick Silva. That is the shortest pit stop I've seen so far. And now my worries turn to Nick Silva to see if he can make it to the end.
And I guess I shouldn't be surprised, Reese. Espinosa's in a Cadillac, so he doesn't count, but 3 out of the top 4 are in Acuras. They've been able to save more fuel than anybody else. That makes sense, because the most important thing in fuel saving, it's accuracy.
Jeez, all right. Cool. Okay, we've gotten that out of the way. I'm going to erase that from my memory.
Zip.
Yeah, zip indeed. Nicholas Schwartz at the moment. Expecting him to come in at the end of this lap. There goes Espinosa. Will the Acuras be able to get an extra lap in, or will Dring decide to bring it into the lane? Dring's going to continue on again.
That's pretty incredible. He's stretching this fuel tank as long as it'll go. Holly's able to go around as well. Nicholas Schwartz too. That's a miracle of fuel saving for Nicholas Schwartz and the Acura gang. Well done. I don't know how well it's going to do them once they have to finally make their stop, but we'll wait and see. Mark Kalin in LMP2, another Whataback driver. He's back in LMP2, battling with Darian Roy. Not battling for him for much longer, though, because he's made it through, and he is up into some of the last spots outside of the top 10. But things are closing up in GTP because, actually things are closing up in LMP2, rather. It's one of the SRT LMP2s. Blake Zeedy and Kyle Strykar's 2 teammates, or at least they were teammates at one point in the past. They found each other for unlucky 13th.
Yeah, don't forget, Chinsky, Ziti, and Strykars, they all pitted at the same time. And at the moment, Chinsky leading the pack. Don't forget, these guys are a little bit offset on strategy. Not a little bit, a lot, versus the rest of the LMP2 field. The only other drivers that have taken pit stops so far are Doug Evans, which I assume is a scheduled pit stop, and drivers that have either pitted for damage or retired early on. So rest of the LMP2 field still owe us a pit stop. When do they decide to take it? As here we go between the GTPs for 8th place, 7th, Zach Hebert and Andres Espinosa. Espinosa, of course, having just come out of the pits, so those tyres will still be a little bit cool compared to those around him, but he should get them up to temperature very shortly. Holly is the first of the Acuras to come in from 3rd.
But look at Mac Miller, 3rd in line here. He was the driver who made the first bit of contact in that big GTP crash we had a couple of laps ago. That looks to be a perfectly clean nose. I think they did a good job of repairing the damage on Mac Miller's car, and he hasn't lost very much.
Yeah, that's good there for Miller, but
he's gonna lose a lot more.
Yeah,
is that karma? I don't know. Is that commentator's curse? I don't know. But Mac Miller's race has come to a catastrophic end in the final corner. Contact with Andres Espinosa. Mac Miller, he's done for.
Yeah, the engine blew. He hit the safer barrier hard in the rear. That already broke the drive shaft, and then the engine just went pop on him to add insult to injury. So difficult in that section of the circuit to get things done here. Espinosa was trying to come across to take the fastest line in, but Miller was still there.
It's all over for Mac Miller. The attrition has been high in GTP. It's been the highest attrition rate we've seen all season. Hopkins, Evans, a whole host of others out very early, before even halfway, and then add even more. Bradley Holly's got a long pit stop. I think he's got a penalty to make matters even worse for him. It's all fallen apart for a large majority of the field, just as things are heating up in the lead of GTP, because Dave Menino in the box for 7 less seconds than Michael Diaz. It sure seems like he's doing a little bit of fuel saving right now to try and make it to the end of the race.
Yeah, looks like it. Bradley Holly, meanwhile, locked up on the way into the pits there. And Holly spent a long time in the lane. He got a penalty there for overshooting pit entry, going too fast on the way in. And that is an especially brutal penalty to take. You're basically stopped for an extra 40-plus seconds.
If it's any solace for Bradley Holly, though, we've had so many DNFs and so many crashes in GTP that even with a 40-second penalty, he's still P11 right now.
Yeah, that's a small saving grace there for Bradley Holly. And now he's back out on track. He can focus on making up more time, making up more positions. But yeah, let's keep an eye on Menino. because at the moment, seems like the pace is pretty similar between himself and Diaz, but is there going to be more fuel saving going on here in these final 18 minutes? We're still not entirely sure whether or not Menino's underfueled it or Diaz has overfueled it. In any case, Diaz definitely looks like he's pushing to try and get the overall lead back.
And part of the reason why I mentioned Watkins Glen as one of the best racetracks in the world is because it is so good for racing. Right after you get out of turn 1, in basically every car that isn't a stock car, you're flat out all the way until the bus stop. If you've got a 4/10 gap like Michael Diaz has right now to Dave Menino, you can make up a good majority of that in the draft. That basically keeps everybody in contention for as long as possible. That's going to be some good solace for Diaz. If he can get a run out of turn 1, he's got about a mile of straight to catch him.
Oh, tiny little wall hit there for, I believe, Dave Menino, as it looks like Anthony Dring and Nicholas Schwartz have come into the lane. That cleanses the top 9 of our our GTPs. I'm still in mid-2000s mode when it comes to prototypes here, Joey.
You know, there's too many letters. GTP, LMP2, LMDH. There's only so many letters in the alphabet. We've got to use every single one of them.
At some point, I'm sure there will be every letter of the alphabet
DMZ,
used.
USB, MTV, it's all here.
TLA, 3-letter acronym.
Ooh, I wonder if we can get our producer Dustin Ollis to break out the TLA today, because through traffic, we want to see every single inch of this action. It is getting very spicy, and Diaz, through the toe of the boot on the exit, does get to the inside of Dave Menino finally. They've got the 75 up ahead. That's one of the Amethyst Racing drivers, I believe. It's not going to matter because Diaz is going to get the move done before they catch traffic. And Michael Diaz back into the lead of this race. Does Dave Menino still have to save some fuel? If he does, he's got a drafting buddy right ahead of him that he can save some fuel behind.
Yeah, that's crucial for Dave Menino, and Diaz still working his way through traffic here, losing a little bit of extra time as Menino, again, so close to hitting the wall on the exit. It is crucial for Menino, because if he has underfueled it, well, then he can use the slipstream to still maintain some speed and save a little bit more fuel coming up to the braking zone for the bus stop. Let's see then if he can hold on to the back of Diaz, because already seems like that is a pretty insurmountable gap, and he might be just on the edge of slipstream range.
He's got some lapped traffic in between. He's got Robert Ridgway, who's a lap down in GTP between the two of them. Actually, Ridgway's gotten out of the way. He's gotten O'Connor to get through him. Now Ryan O'Connor's hoping that they battle a little bit more up here, because if they do go side by side again, that'll bring Ryan O'Connor into this fight. It'll be a 3-way battle for the race lead, and Ryan O'Connor is he's on the lightest fuel of anybody. He's on better fuel mileage than Dave Menino. He's more likely to make it to the end of the race. If O'Connor can catch these two, he could be in a great spot to take his first win.
Certainly. Battle for P2 and LMP2, meanwhile. Nicholas Gowen having to fend off Doug Sorrentino. And a little bit of oversteer in the way in for Sorrentino, but he completes the move coming out of turn 1. It's been a really good run for Sorrentino, hasn't it?
In the LMP2 class, we're still waiting for the majority of them to come in. Josh Gowen, he just came in. Jerome Bertiome just came in. But it's starting to get to the point, half an hour into the race, where these LMP2 fuel tanks are starting to run a little bit dry with the fuel limit. And this battling is going to be helping Jack Hedgecox very much, because he can afford to have a little bit of a longer stop and still have the lead.
Very true. But I'm just amazed at Sorrentino's run so far. He's been steadily working his way through. Did I hear something? Oh, way out on the curb. That was our producer having a little heart attack moment in the background there. Yeah, it's amazing how hard they push. Especially in the boot section, where the curbs are decidedly narrower than you expect.
There's grass all over the place. There is asphalt runoff now. They made a few improvements to this place a couple years ago to make it more presentable and also make it a little bit safer, but it's as safe as can be here at Watkins Glen. There's still no margin for error. There's still grass just about everywhere. You can see through the final corner. There's grass on the track as everybody's extending all the way to the left and picking some of it up. It's an old-style track. There's no margin for error, and there's especially no margin for error when you're navigating through traffic.
Yeah, but traffic navigated for the Vice Acura, at least for the time being, as it looks like our LMP2 leaders are now in the lane. Goen, Hedgecock, Sorrentino, followed by Jeremy Carter. It looks like Darian Roy's coming in too. I'd expect everyone who, well, yeah, actually, everyone who hadn't already made a pit stop has now completed it. And
short stop for Doug Sorrentino. Sorry, Reese, but he's going to take the race lead with a shorter stop than anybody. 2 seconds shorter than Jack Hedgecock's. But once again, same questions with Dave Menino. Has he put too little fuel in the car, or has this been a strategy masterclass from Doug Sorrentino to take the lead?
Took the words right out of my mouth. There we go then. Can Sorrentino be a surprise victor, or has he underfueled? Hedgecox has come out behind him and is already on the power and trying to pick up some form of slipstream as they come back onto the back straight for the first time. Darian Roy just coming out of the pits himself, and it looks like that is the entire field having gone through the pits.
12-minute sprint to the end of the race now. Look at how close things have gotten in GTP. Michael Diaz still half a second over Dave Menino. He's somewhat comfortable there. Not comfortable for Menino, though, is Ryan O'Connor, only 4 tenths behind him now. If Menino's still saving fuel, he's going to have a very hungry Ryan O'Connor preparing him to overtake him very soon, and maybe even looking forward at Michael Diaz, who's getting held up in traffic off the corner. That was Alexander Good, I believe, who he makes it through now. But Ryan O'Connor is close enough. We might see him go for a move into turn 1 as we ride on board.
All right, Ryan getting a slightly better run out of the final corner, and defensive from Menino. No, that's to give the LMP2 a lot of space. He doesn't need to defend coming into turn 1, but could be vulnerable coming up the S's towards the back stretch. Michael Diaz has managed to hold on to enough of a gap that Menino has been left hung out to dry. He doesn't have any assistance in the slipstream.
Here we go, Ryan O'Connor trying to go for the move into the bus stop. He's close, but he's not close enough. Has to back out of things. You can see him lifting off a little bit. He's going to slot back in line and try and go for that move the next time around. There's trouble in LMP2 for Josh Goen, by the way. He was up in the top 5. I think he's back in the pits now. He may have had a little bit of an issue. We'll take a look at that when we can, but for now, Menino and O'Connor, they've solved things.
They have indeed, and well, you say a little bit of an issue, Joey. It looks like a very big issue for Josh Goen. Let's wait for the replay here. So he comes into the heel of the boot, unfortunately loses the rear end on the way in, and then gets absolutely collected by an incoming Cadillac.
That was Nick Silver, one of the few cars that's still running in GTP, and now he's going to be joining the fray of drivers with heavy damage. He's still out there. He's still got the chance to finish in the top 10, but yeah, he's going to have some heavy damage there. Brett Thurman, driver who's always very consistent. You rarely see him getting into incidents of his own. He's taken that skill to such high heights here. He's up into P6 by virtue of staying on track, by virtue of not getting into any accidents himself. And he could have his best result of the season, and a great result for SRT Esports. If they can get a 3rd or a 2nd and a 6th, that'll hold them in the team's championship lead, I believe.
What have we always been saying? Consistency is key, and Thurman definitely demonstrating that. Here comes O'Connor, though. Slipstream on Dave Menino, who has to go defensive again, coming into the bus stop. There is enough space there that he can just resume the position, and a tiny bit of aero push that would be had through those quick corners means that O'Connor has to find a way to gear up for another move again. It's so difficult to follow through quick turns in cars of this speed.
O'Connor doesn't seem to have the straight line speed he really needs, because he's able to use the draft, but the second he pulls out, he just falls like a rock. I wonder if this is maybe the effect of the open setups. Like we always see, some drivers go for the low downforce to take advantage of the straights. O'Connor maybe on higher downforce to take advantage of the boot, and it's not helping him in the most important overtaking opportunity on the track.
Yeah, well, I mean, even looking at the car behavior, I think you have a point there. You can see that O'Connor is just making up tiny bits more time on the entry into corners in the boot, but once they get to the long straight line sections of the track, it seems like his pace just goes.
See if he can make it work into turn 1 this time. Again, it's a great exit out of the final corner, but you'll see the stagnation. He closes, and then he ceases to close. But out of turn 1, he's still hunting. Both drivers running a little bit wide, but not wide enough to get out of that off track. We're gonna see some deja vu here, some repetition. We'll test our hypothesis. Does O'Connor have the speed to catch up in the draft, or is he gonna stagnate about 2/10 back again? I think we got our answer.
Yeah, look at that. There's barely any time being made up at all. He's going to have to be right on the back of Menino coming out of turn 1 to have any chance.
I think if Dave Menino was having to save fuel, I think he may have saved all the fuel he needed to save, because he's back at 100% pace. He's keeping this gap to O'Connor. If he did underfuel the car, he's done a good job of minimizing the damage, and he may still get second out of this.
And that would be still a fantastic conversion from his first PRL pole position. Again, just big shout out to Dave Menino for finally breaking that duck. And Diaz has had bad luck before. There's every potential that he might have it again. Wait and see if Menino will be there to claim victory if there's some traffic issues potentially for Michael Diaz. It looks like Bradley Holly up ahead of him in 10th in class in the Acura. Holly having a bit of a rough time out there, but it looks like Diaz is going to be let by without much issue.
And Polly's going to pull out of the way. Doug Evans and LMP2 up ahead as well. But Dave Menino, again, out of the final corner. He has been playing with the limits and playing with fire out of the final corner. I don't think it's given him any real damage, but he has come so close to that safer barrier and tapped it a couple times that if he gets any wider, he's going to be in with a whole nother issue. But back here in LMP2, Josh Chinsky trying to hold off Kyle Strykars, trying to get back by Jerome Bertiome to get back up into the top 5. Like I said, this battle never stops heating up.
Yeah, and remember, Chinsky and Strykars have been together ever since the pit stop, but it could be a difference here with Chinsky catching the grass on the exit of the boot section and a bit offline through the last couple corners as well. He does get back into a rhythm and manages to stay ahead. Pass for the lead in LMP2, meanwhile, in between Hedgecox and Sorrentino. It looks like Hedgecox finally getting back on the pace, has made his way back past, but Sorrentino's not letting him get away.
I think Sorrentino got wide out of turn 1, lost the lead coming up the hill. Remember, Doug's on a slightly lighter fuel tank than Hedgecox, 2 seconds lighter, in fact. And can he fight back now after taking the lead on strategy? He's got to figure out a way to get by Jack Hedgecox on track. There's some traffic behind. I think that's the SRT Esport GTP of Andres Espinoza. He's going to get through on Sorrentino into the toe of the boot. Is that going to check up Jack Hedgecox a little bit more and open up the door? Sorrentino's certainly hoping so, because he's lost a full second in only half a lap's time.
Wow, yeah, that's huge, especially with only 5 minutes left on the timer. So he'll be hoping that he can use the slipstream off the GTP, having just made his way through. Nicholas Gowen could find a chance for second place as well, but he is dealing with a lot of oversteer there. You saw him in the background. He was sliding his way out of that corner, which you kind of have to do, as O'Connor and Menino are together. Ooh,
Menino and O'Connor, there's a lot of O's, and luckily we didn't have to say oh no, because they made that work somehow. Side by side through the bus stop is so dicey. It's so difficult. These two proving that they're some of the best in this series, giving each other just enough room to make that work, and also making Michael Diaz very happy with a 3.5 second lead. But here's how it went into the bus stop side by side. Easily does it.
Tiny bit of contact, but that's to be expected when you're running side by side through a one-line corner. It was a very brave move there from O'Connor to make his way past, coming around the outside into that chicane. Rarely ends well, but fortunately, despite a couple of dings and dents in the carbon fiber, I think that's worked out all right for them. Meanwhile, Jerome Bertiome and Carl Strykars still fighting over 5th in LMP2, and that's a good defense from Strykars coming into the bus stop. He holds on for just a while longer.
Looked like they were going to do the same thing as O'Connor and Menino and run side by side, but they said, you know what, not this lap. I'll wait for a better chance to do it. Josh Chinsky has only lost, unfortunately, after his little bobble coming out of the top of the boot. Strykars and Bertiome, they're going to be side by side again up into the toe of the boot. Can't make the outside work there, though. Strykars hoping for a switchback and just trying to find a way by the most wide Dallara LMP2 in the world, piloted by Jerome Bertiome.
Oh, I'm seeing a big incident for Dave Menino at the bus stop. He has gone into the wall. The right front is destroyed.
Welcome to the fray, Dave Menino. How things have fallen apart for Dave Menino. His first pole ever in the PRL, fighting for the podium. The guy who's second in the championship, who could have been in the championship lead with Colin Hopkins' issues. He's going to be still P10, I think, with the amount of attrition we've had so far, but that's not going to be any solace for him. Back to this battle in LMP2, as we do actually see what happened to Dave Menino into the bus stop behind O'Connor. Curb, spin, damage.
Yeah, very heavy hit. Such a shame there for Menino. It's all fallen apart for him, and yeah, the front right of that car is not doing him any favors. He will have to bring that back to the pits at this stage, I would think.
Ooh.
Meanwhile, still not over here.
It was a late move from Jerome Berthiaume, maybe even a late block there, but I don't think Strike Cars is going to be too worried about that. There was enough room between them, but this is getting spicy, and it's always spicy when you're racing with Jerome because he's the head honcho of the series. He's the guy who owns the whole PRL. He puts everything on. Obviously, if there's a racing incident, he's gonna be just like any other driver. But you always do race around Jerome a little bit differently because you're like, you know what, he's kind of responsible for everything in the PRL. I want to be nice to him.
He is the man that holds the hammer. Defensive, but that is a very late dive around the outside for Carl Strykars, and he holds the line on the exit to get it done. Oh no! There we go. Okay, the hammer is rising.
Oh dear, Jerome Berthiaume. Heavy damage. Still seems to be okay somehow. Still gonna try and hold off Joshua Chinsky, but through the second to last corner, you can see there is pretty big damage on that car. There's only 2 laps to go, so he's gonna still make it to the end. Doesn't look like he has a meatball or anything, but a race that looked like it was gonna be comfortably in the top 5. It's gonna be P8, I think, for Jerome Berthiaume. Dave Menino is still out there on track, still trying to make 2 laps to go. You might as well keep driving, but if you've got to take required repairs and also you can't turn through left-hand corners, it might be a more difficult job to make it to the end of the race than you think.
Now, at the very least, he's going to try and make it across the line.
Oh, don't take anybody with LMP2 out.
Yeah, fortunately, it's a right-hander, so he will be able to maintain the line, but I think if he were to come into the pits and get those repairs done, he wouldn't see the flag. So I think, in that sense, it makes sense that he's staying out, but yeah, I don't know. He might even get disqualified at the end. Remember, I think you have a maximum of like 3 laps before you get disqualified if you don't serve a mechanical black flag.
There goes Bradley Holly into the wall. Welcome to the club, Brad. And he's going to try and drive it back to the pits as well. He's going to try and stay ahead of Dave Menino. I don't know if he's going to be able to do that. And now we have 9 cars left in GTP with no damage. Menino is he's going to take the white flag with 3 wheels, and Jug Sorrentino is going to take the white flag in second behind Jack Hedgecox. Michael Diaz, though, up at the head of the field. Didn't seem like the fastest driver in the field today, but with trouble for Fiercely Forward, trouble for Dave Menino, and trouble for Ryan O'Connor, Michael Diaz has come out ahead of everybody through the final 2 corners. He's been in a dual program this season. He's been winning races in Formula D, he's been winning races in GTP, and once again, Michael Diaz wins in the GTP LMP2 series. That's going to be good for him in the championship. 3 wins in 5 races. When that drop week comes in, you might just see Michael Diaz in the lead of this championship. Ryan O'Connor, his best result of the season in second. He's going to be happy with that. And Zach Hebert survives all the trouble to finish P3. But Jack Hedgecox, he's in the lead in LMP2. He's got about half a track left to go. And he has looked like he did in the first 2 rounds of the season. Totally untouchable from the start of the race to the end. Got back by Doug Sorrentino. Now it's going to be 3 more corners for Jack Hedgecox. He won the first 2 rounds of the season, like I said. Got beaten the last 2 weeks by Nicholas Shepard. Did not look like his old self, but when Shepard crashed out today, Hedgecox was there to pounce. And this is going to be Jack Hedgecox's championship. Back on track, back in the lead, back out of the final corner. And for the 3rd time this season, Jack Hedgecox is going to crawl to the line to take a win in LMP2.
Beautiful job from Hedgecox, and beautiful job from Sorrentino as well, who was able to keep himself out of the clutches of Nicholas Goen at the end. Joshua Chinsky, it looks like, is going to finish behind ZT and Strykars at the end of it. So that's how the battle works out for those who pitted early in LMP2, just staying out to the end, and he manages to finish ahead of Bertiome and Rabel at the end. Oh boy, what an active race that was. There was chaos all through the field. It was just a case of who survived.
Yeah, it was. That's a good word, active. It was very, very active. But at the end of it all, it's the two guys who have done more winning than anybody else who came out on top. So just like in LMP3 GT4 earlier tonight, the best of the best have risen to the top once more, and it's gonna be interesting for the rest of the season. But here we go. After 31 laps total, 30 laps total, something like that, there were 7 cars left in GTP on the lead lap with no damage. Michael Diaz, Ryan O'Connor, Zach Hebert at the podium. Pat Pelshot got bowling balled earlier on by his teammate Mac Miller, still was able to bring it to the finish in P4, and Brett Thurman top 5 for that guy. Very consistent, very smart driving. He's going to be happy with the top 5. Anthony Dring in the Acura ahead of Nicholas Schwartz in the Acura. There may have only been a couple of them, but 2 of them survived to the end. Dave Menino, his first pole in the PRL, ended in a big crash and crossing the line 1 lap down because he didn't serve his meatball flag. Espinoza, his teammate, also crashed on the final lap, so a day that looked fantastic for SRT doesn't look quite so fantastic anymore with 8th and 9th. Bradley Holly also crashed on the final lap. Still gets top 10 for his efforts for simply surviving longer than all of these guys in the used car lot. Nick Silver, no fault of his own. There was a spinning car in front of him. Robert Ridgway, Mac Miller, Daniel Harris, Aiden Young, Rafael Russo, Jeff Evans, Colin Hopkins. Every single one of them crashed out, wasn't able to make it to the finish. Watkins Glen bit quite a bit today. And down in LMP2, Jack Hedgecock's back on top, ahead of Doug Sorrentino. Sorrentino able to take the lead after the pit cycle. Couldn't quite keep it on track, though, after saving a little bit of fuel and having a shorter stop. Nicholas Goen started on pole, didn't finish there, unfortunately. He's still going to get his 3rd podium in 3 races. Then Jeremy Carter and Kyle Strykars down to the end of the top 5. Chinsky, Ziti, and Jerome Bertiome, P8 after some damage. Comes home right ahead of Chris Rabel and Darian Roy to round out the top 10. Last driver on the lead lap was Darian Roy. Mark Kalin went 1 lap down. Chandler 1 lap down. Kaufman, Evans, and Good 1 lap down each. And then we get into the used car lot because Watkins Glen bit in LMP2 as well. It bit Goen, Lehman, Hoskins, Nicholas Shepard, and Chip Michaels, all very, very heavily. Eric Harmon as well. And Nicholas Shepard, spare a thought for him. He's got to use his drop week now. That's going to hurt him in the championship fight with Jack Hedgecocks. But we've got all of our podium sitters in GTP already, and we'll start first and foremost with Michael Diaz. After an absolutely chaotic race, 7 cars finished this thing without any damage. Michael, how did you survive?
Every time I did the bus stop, I did a little prayer and hope for the best. That's all I can say. That thing was terrifying, man.
So you've already used your drop week this season, basically, with the race last week, but you've got 3 wins in 5 races. As we go into the second half of the season, how are you feeling about the championship battle?
It's looking good. If I could keep it clean, I don't have to aim for all the wins, just finish in good spots, and it could probably bring it home in the end. See how it goes, but for now it's looking good.
Well, Michael, I should congratulate you on the win, but more importantly, I'm going to congratulate you on surviving Watkins Glen today. Congratulations, and we'll see you next week, or actually we'll see you on Thursday beforehand.
Yeah, thanks, man, and shout out to my teammates Ryan and Pat for awesome drive today. By the way, Joey, since you informed me of that quality stat, I can't for the life of me get a pole. It's a skill issue you gave me.
It is a skill issue I gave you. That's the biggest commentator's curse I'm ever given. I'm actually proud a little bit, but congrats, Michael.
All right, thanks, man. You guys have a good night.
Michael Diaz. Actually, his 13th win in the PRL, so maybe that's a little bit of bad luck for him as well. But anyway, we've got our winner in LMP2 as well. Mr. Jack Hedgecocks is with Reese.
He is indeed. G'day, Jack, and congratulations once again on victory in this series, though certainly didn't come easy here at Watkins Glen.
No, it did not. I definitely look, really happy to take the win, especially how last week went with getting a drive-through and just being too eager to try and make up spots and really hurt myself. So definitely took a different approach this week and was really glad to come out on top.
looked like in terms of strategy, there were a few drivers in the LMP2 class that decided to go for the early stop, but everyone else deciding to go later. What's the thinking behind that?
I definitely was on the side of going as long as possible. With more fuel burn, the better the tires will feel, especially towards the end of the stints. Those tires, I personally took front tires in that pit stop because, man, it was understeering everywhere towards the end of that, and I don't think I could have made it that much farther. But yeah, I'd say definitely, especially with traffic, I could understand pitting early if you're further back in the field, get some clean air. But when you're up in the front, you just want as much time to get those quick laps in, especially with the fuel burn. So.
Well, regardless, that's another win on the board for you, and that should be an extension to your championship lead before drop rounds come into effect. So congratulations, Jack, and hopefully we get another chance to chat to you next week.
Alrighty, thank you all. See you all next week.
Brilliant performance from Jack Hedgecox there, Joey. And next up, we, I presume, are going to have second place in the GTP class. Ryan O'Connor is with you now.
Indeed. Ryan O'Connor, first day you provide us with your VR feed, your first podium of the season. I got to imagine that's a pretty good luck charm.
Well, second podium of the season there, Joey, but
darn.
yeah, that's okay. Hey, you know what? It's my second podium ever in PRL, so very happy as well. Team was awesome. Pat put out an awesome setup for us like he does every week, and we played a great strategy.
We played a great strategy. It seemed like the strategy today, Will, though, was just surviving. So many of your competitors got into trouble, so many crashes. How did you survive, just like your teammate, and just bring this thing home?
Honestly, it could have been any one of us that didn't survive it. It's a brutal track, especially with LMP2 traffic. They're not that much slower than we are, so it's count our good fortune tonight.
So the second half of the season coming up. You, as you said, got 2 podiums in the first half. Could that first win in the PRL potentially be coming in the second half?
You know what? Let's hope so. I was actually hoping Mike would have been so nice to let me by and get my first win ever, but of course I don't want to win that way. Yeah, I mean, the Fiercely Forward boys, they had an off night, so they're going to stand in my way of first win and more podiums, and same thing with my teammates too. They're all seem a little bit more quicker than I am.
Well, Ryan, congrats on your second podium of the season. Your best result of the season, though, because this was a second, that was a third. We'll see you next week.
Thanks a lot, Joey.
Ryan O'Connor, best result in the PRL. Good for him. Got one more driver we'll talk to here. Coming home third in GTP, Zach Hebert is with Reese Gardner.
Indeed, Zach, that was a bit of a chaotic one in the GTP class. You were certainly right in the midst of it all. How was it for you, just trying to avoid the carnage?
I mean,
we do not.
It wasn't too terrible. I had a little hiccup with trying to pass a LMP2 kind of around lap 7 or 8 and spun, so I kind of thought my race was over. But just kept nose to the grindstone and basically kept running consistent laps. Like I said, every time we came to the bus stop, it would seemed like someone else went off. But again, just trying to avoid all the carnage and keep it clean through everybody. But like I said, it wasn't too terrible.
Not too terrible indeed, and considering your runnings in the season so far, you were in 10th coming into this round, so a podium is a sizable haul of points for you, and could definitely help you come drop round time.
Absolutely. Like I said, I was again just coming through and making sure that you hit all your marks, and again didn't try and overdrive the car. Like I said, I had to save a little bit of fuel kind of after the pit stop, trying to work out in my head where kind of where time was going to run out, but we played the strategy right and we got it done today.
Indeed you did. Big congratulations, Zach, and hopefully another podium is on the cards next week in the French countryside.
Thank you guys so much.
Oh, brilliant stuff there from Zach Hebert. Once more, Joey, it looks like that's going to bring things to an end for tonight. This has been another fun night of PRL racing.
It has been. It's been a night of chaos, and I can only imagine it's going to get even more chaotic next week because I mentioned Watkins Glen likes to bite. Well, Le Mans, it bites as well. You did it better than I did earlier on, Reese. You got the French pronunciation right.
Yeah, 24 is 24
24
in French. Yes, that's it. I took French in high school for a couple of years, and that's pretty much all I remember.
I'm embarrassing myself in the French-Canadian League by not knowing my French numbers. But either way, we are going there next week, right after the first race of the night in GT4 and LMP3. They'll both be back next week for even more chaos, even more drama. Coda for the LMP3 GT4 challenge. That's going to be interesting in its own right. Can anybody break the Sean Campbell dominance in LMP3? Can anybody break the Alexis Moisan dominance in GT4? Can anybody break up and win for the first time in LMP2 or GTP either? Just simply wait until next week. There's more PRL action. Tomorrow night, it's the GT3 doubleheader on Tuesday nights. But until we see you then, I've been Joey Tebben. Reese Gardner's been Reese Gardner. Our producer has been Dustin Ollis. Until we see you next time, so long.